Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting to order at 6:02. Would you all please stand for the pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Yes,
Here.
Aiden Collins.
Here.
Liz Darrow. Here. Joe Ellenboss.
Yeah. Oh, yes, like that possibility.
Lindsay Graham Ellenboss. Here. Colin Coltenfeld.
Here.
Brad Kelly.
Present.
Maya Morales. Present. Johnny Westford.
Here.
Anna Bordos. Here. Joel Jordan.
Here.
Andrew Redding.
On my way.
Jessica Rienstra. Here. Brad Stone.
Here.
Jennifer Wright. Here. So now we're gonna move on to approving the agenda. Are there any amendments to today's agenda? Oh, Commissioner Ordos and
Sure. I'd like to move my amendment 19. There's some questions about how it relates to amendment 13. So if you can push that to June 16th so that I can get legal in that would be great.
are there any objections to moving that by consent? In favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Commissioner Westford.
Yeah, I'd like to delay till next meeting, the amendment 24, that's dealing with bank capacity, property tax. The assessor, I learned early this morning, the assessor had some questions about how to implement that should pass. So we want to answer that question before we have a final vote. So we want them to be happy first.
A second from Commissioner Curtis, and we're talking about Thursday, June 12th.
Do we have another meeting after to give us?
Just committee of the whole. June 16th is the final meeting to vote on things.
June 16th. Thank you.
Is that okay with you, Commissioner Ordos? The second? Okay, okay. Are there any opposed to deciding this by consent? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And I would move to shift proposed amendment 26, establishing performance audits to June 12th. I think we have some outstanding questions on that and would love to be able to get to a good place on that one.
Number 26.
It's 26 to June 12th.
Second. Are there opposed to deciding this by consent? In favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That's everything. Do I have a motion to approve this agenda as amended?
Madam Chair, I've even got this thing turned up and I can barely hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's-
I will speak up. Thank you for reminding me of
I'm
that.
just speaking on behalf of the public.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Commissioner Morales, was that a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Second.
Any opposition to deciding this by consent? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So we're gonna move on to public comment. Thank you for being here. Members of the public may address the commission on topics related to the Whatcom County Charter. If you have a comment on one of the agenda items listed under old business, that's number 5 on your agenda. We ask you to hold your comments until that agenda item. So we'll start with general comments. Are there any in-person commenters signed up to speak?
Yeah, we've got Rosemary Van Beek. Mine's under new business, so we're not there yet. I don't think we typically do comments.
It's usually just the old business because we go in deeper discussion. So if you have something to say about new business, now's the
Oh,
time.
okay. Really not a lot. Okay, previous charter members seem to be okay with this being a volunteer service. what if all the other councils, boards, commissions, et cetera, that are volunteer want salaries? Right now, there are 15 members here, and I've read like on the children's levy that's a volunteer, there's 30 members. How many other volunteer systems are there in Whatcom County? And if all of them want to be paid, where's the money coming from? The budget is already exploding and the middle class in this county are strained. I've heard and read so many express that they cannot afford to live here. And there's been no vote on this issue. I just wish y'all would hurry up and vote on some of these issues. If ranked choice voting is put on the charter, remember that's for 10 years. And if you don't like it, it's too bad. You have it for 10 years. Last night, I read on Facebook a notice that my hometown is issuing a curfew because of all the shootings, and a former Baylor football player was killed. They're now under curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. for people under 21, at midnight to 6 a.m. for adults. This all happened by choices politicians have made over the years to run off the middle class in my hometown. It's left not much left. It's time to get things finished up here and debated on and voted on and get it finished. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to make the comment that if you're representative of the middle class that's being run off from there and coming to us, we got the better part of the deal.
Only because I got a good husband.
Next, we'll go to John W. Sepchik.
As Dash says nothing.
That was just a sign in, not a comment.
Oh, okay. Then we have Brian Estes.
Good evening, members of the Charter Review Commission. I'm Brian Estes, and I'm here to strongly support establishing an Office of the Performance Auditor within the legislative branch of the Whatcom County government. I have a 36-year career conducting performance audits, first with the Federal Government Accountability Office, or GAO, and later with the King County Auditor's Office, which is part of the King County Council. I brought with me tonight a copy of an exciting document. Yes, government auditing standards, they do exist. This is called the Yellow Book. And if you establish an office, they would be following these audit standards. And this authoritative guide, which is published and updated by GAO, sets professional standards that govern performance audits nationwide. Establishing an independent performance auditor is not only a best practice, it is a necessary step to strengthen public trust, ensure government efficiency, and safeguard taxpayer resources. According to GAO, performance audits provide vital assessments that lead to greater accountability, transparency, and improved outcomes. When designed properly, as outlined in the Yellow Book and by the Association of Local Government Auditors, yes, there is a National Association of Local Government Performance Auditors. Such offices function independently, report directly to the legislative branch, and operate without political or managerial interference. Imagine that in our current political world. But jurisdictions across the country that have implemented independent performance audit offices consistently report major cost savings and improved service delivery. Consider King County, which is much different. King County Audit Office, which is much different than our audit office here. All it does is performance auditing, and it reports to the King County Council. It saved an estimated $240 million over 3 years at a cost of just $9 million. The return on investment of 26 to 1. This is not an isolated case. From inefficiencies in service delivery to missed revenue opportunities, these audits uncover what would otherwise go unnoticed. I know some of you are concerned that this adds another position to county government and the expense associated with that. But I can tell you this position will pay for itself many times over in direct cost savings, risk reduction, or cost avoidance. Please keep this in mind when considering this amendment. The performance audits are not just about saving money. They assess whether programs are effective, equitable, and achieving their intended outcomes. For Whatcom County, this could mean auditing behavioral health programs and assessing homelessness and housing strategies. These are high-stakes areas where we cannot afford inefficiency or inequity. Tonight, I urge you to create this office within the legislative branch, provide it with the legal protections, funding, and authority that it needs to succeed. It's time for Whatcom County to join the growing number of jurisdictions that understand that accountability and transparency are not luxuries, they are necessities. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next we'll go to John Westfield.
Thank you, members of the commission. Speaking tonight about proposed amendment 28 from Mr. Redding. I knew this was going to come up.
Please.
You know, we
There's
don't have a
no
microphone,
mic.
unfortunately, but maybe
No.
just.
Oh, okay. There's
Just
not
speak up.
It's empty.
I'm sorry.
They don't like hearing me anyway, so it's
You can
okay.
speak into, you can speak into it, but it might not work.
I knew nearly a year ago that this was going to come up. It's part of the reason I ran. I just wish to God I'd done a better job so I would have a vote on this body instead of having to stand here and talk to you without a vote. Everyone in this room knows exactly why this was put forward. Everybody in this room knows exactly what it is Mr. Redding is trying to get to. Everybody in this room knows exactly what amendment he wants to get on the ballot. This is a simple case of if the rules don't work for you, change the rules. That is not the way it's supposed to work in this country. The rules exist, live with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone we have in the room, so we'll see online. First up online, we're gonna go to. Sandy, you've got 3 minutes.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Well, commissioners, I'm very happy to get a chance to talk to you tonight. It didn't work out that way the last time. And in this portion, I just want to encourage you first and foremost to remember that the amendments, resolutions, whatever else you put forth will eventually go for approval, not to the county council, not to the county executive, but to the voters. So when you have something that is controversial that a lot of people like, and I'll use ranked choice voting as an example, a lot of people like it, a lot of people are against it. Give us, the voters, a little bit of credit and give us a chance to weigh in on it. Because whatever decision we make will be something that the voters themselves have decided. And that's what we got you folks there for, is to get that to us. Now, along with that, I'd like to remind us all that you were elected for a term of 1 year, not 6 months. And that the way the charter reads, amendments are selected to go in the next general election. We're pretty lucky in Whatcom County because we seem to have an election every year. So those amendments that you decide on that make it on to this general election, keep in mind that you can work until December and get some of them on the next election. So, you know, don't just look at it as a cutoff. And this will conclude my remarks for now. Thank you.
Next, we're gonna go to Misty Flowers. So you've got 3 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I just wanted to speak briefly on a couple of new items. One is I definitely agree with
Can't hear you anymore.
I think we lost you, Misty.
sorry, I'm having phone issues. Thank you for your time. I will just write you all and I yield my time.
Okay.
And next we'll go to Mark Strumler.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Mark Stremler. I'm a lifelong citizen of Whatcom County and a resident of District 4. And again, thank you for all the time and effort that you're putting into this this charter review. I have a couple of items that are under new business, and I know you're not voting on those tonight, but wanted to talk to you about those. The first one being proposed amendment number 29. Last year, Whatcom County witnessed the county council approve spending up to $100,000 of the taxpayers' money to derail an attempt to derail an initiative that qualified to be on the ballot. No group should stand in the way of the will of the citizens of Whatcom County because they didn't agree with it. So I would ask you to vote in favor of number 29 when the time comes. And then also number 34, I would ask that you consider addressing this amendment after all of the other ones have been addressed already, since this one has already been in front of you and ultimately it failed. So I would encourage you to think about putting this one, in a sense, last in line. And that is all I have to say. Thank you.
That's everyone we have online.
Okay, good. Next we'll move on to the approval of the May 22nd minutes. Do any commissioners have comments or corrections to those minutes?
Oh, I did have a question on that, Madam Chair. And that every once in a while we consider something and there's an amendment and then we only take one vote. And I think that happened in these minutes. And so we need a clarification as to what the outcome was. Gosh, it jumped right out at me earlier. And everybody else scanned it. It's one where there was a proposed amendment. We had a discussion on the amendment. I think it was Joel's item as it relates to when I suggested we suspend the rules. If you read it, it doesn't so indicate. It says that there was a vote and that it passed. And that's okay. So proposed amendment 23. If you will recall, I did move to suspend the rules and immediately go to that item.
I believe it did We're talking about proposed amendment 26.
2023, but I think what he suggested didn't get
26, actually, under new business, because it was being introduced
Okay.
on page 16. And there was a second that was withdrawn, so that's not reflected here in the minutes, but the reason that second was withdrawn by Commissioner Redding was because Commissioner Fitzgerald indicated that he would like to not do that.
Well, but Madam Chair, what this says, if you read it, is that I offered a friendly amendment. And you show that the motion carried by unanimous consent.
Right, so I'm agreeing with you that the minutes are incorrect.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And so just if we can correct that, that's,
Do you agree with my memory of what happened?
absolutely.
Okay, good.
I have another one. So on amendment number 8. I believe you got me and Joe mixed up. Oh, sorry, the proposal is amendment 16.
I'm sorry, what page are you
Yeah, what
on?
page is
I'm on
that?
page 16,
Okay.
it's amendment 16.
I see, okay.
Yeah, I voted no on that.
Okay. Commissioner Ellenboss, can you confirm your vote on proposed amendment 16? Do you remember? I think it'd be best to go back and we can approve these minutes next time. Yeah, I do. Fine doing that, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna work on that the next time. Thanks for bringing those things up. We're now gonna turn to old business. So we can hear public comments specific to each proposed amendment prior to the discussion. And the first one up for discussion is proposed amendment 20. Adjust the required number of signatures to 15% of the votes cast at the last county executive election to place a referendum on the ballot. Just to clarify, we've moved proposal 19 to June 16th, but we're gonna do this one right now. Okay. Are there any public comments on amendment 20? Okay. Commissioner Ordos, would you like to speak to amendment?
Yep, so amendment 20 was keeping in line with moving from a gubernatorial race to an executive, and with a percentage that was comparable to our existing percentage.
Do you have a motion on this one to open the discussion?
A motion to open up for discussion.
Second. Any questions or comments on amendment proposal 20? Commissioner Reddy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna speak out against it because it's purely performative. It would result in the exact same reality as at present with a slight and inconsequential difference. So it's basically, and that was your purpose, to keep it just as it is now. And so I pretty much never support purely performative amendments where there's not going to be an actual change if voters vote for this. And also because even though, as I've indicated in the past, you know, for as long as Democrats are in control here, they're never going to want to use a referendum because that goes against their own elected officials. That's the only purpose of a referendum, is when the county council passes something and you want to reverse it. That's when you go to referendum. Otherwise, it's an initiative. And so, you know, just from a partisan standpoint, this would be just fine. But I'm not coming at it from a partisan standpoint. And so I'm somebody who believes that we need to trust the public, even in situations where it may not be to the advantage of one party or another. I don't care what the advantage is to one party or another. My position is I'm a populist. I'm always in favor of giving the public as much opportunity to weigh in on things directly as possible. And this does not achieve that objective, so I'll be voting against it.
Clarifying point, if I may, it looks as though this proposal would change the election from gubernatorial to county executive, which would bring it in line with the change that we've already made to propose to the voters. Yeah, so that's just a comment.
Except that
My comment would be, I am in favor of it. I think centering things locally and not having a disparity where some things are centered locally and some are at the state level makes a lot of sense. And then, so I don't think it's purely performative. And then I think we've had some comments, and I hope there'll be some more tonight about, how once you put an initiative that's passed by the voters, it takes tens of thousands of voters in the county to approve. So the bar for coming to undo something that tens of thousands of people have voted for, seems like it should be higher, because as soon as that is approved, it puts a wrench into all the good work that's being done in the county. I've seen that directly. Working with the task force that I do, that just as soon as that came up, it made it really hard to roll out. So there's a delay for children and families who are in need. So anyway, I'm in favor. I'm gonna vote yes, and I encourage everybody else to do so as well. It's not performative, and it centers everything locally, which we all want. Commissioner Elbas?
Yes, Madam Chair, can I question the maker of the motion?
Sure.
Okay. Well, typically, we're only supposed to direct our comments to you, so we often fail to do that, and it's probably not appropriate. So with that permission, Commissioner Ordos, for my own clarification and for that of any other person listening, can you say specifically what your proposal does to change what the status is today? What are you attempting to accomplish by your revised wording?
Well, I think Commissioner Wright explained it well. So what it does is it takes it from the gubernatorial race to the executive level race to be consistent with the initiatives and what Amendment 13 was putting forward for charter amendments. So just for consistency, the percentage just maintains within about 10% what we currently have.
So that's the part where I'm just slightly confused. The current standing is that the last Charter Review Commission reduced the percentage necessary for a referendum. But we've identified by virtue of changing from the gubernatorial race, which has a much higher threshold than the executive race, that if we just change an election, we change a number. So you're 10% when you're saying it's the same amount of votes generally. Is that correct? Or is there actually going to be a smaller number of signatures necessary if we're changing the threshold?
If I think I'm understanding you correctly, so it goes from 8% of the gubernatorial, it would go 15% of the executive. So if you do the math, I think it's within 10,000 votes, within 1,100 votes.
Well, I just asked for that clarification because it's very important that people do understand. Essentially, you're looking in your proposal for not doing a tremendous modification in the number of signatures that are necessary. You're just saying that now with it being, if it is approved to put it at the executive race, that the number of signatures, that percentage is modified to accommodate and make it just about the same thing.
It's 11,126 versus 12,306.
Okay. But I don't know whether others have that question that aren't, and so that's why I asked that clarification. That is consistent, and that will have my support because that is consistent with why I supported what Commissioner Redding was proposing we do as it relates to the charter amendments, but we only made half of that decision. Okay.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Thank you. I like uniformity and consistency, and my understanding, if we do this and it goes to the voters and they approve it, then all of the signature-based challenges are all based on the executive office election. All of them will be at that point. There'd be consistency throughout the charter.
That's the intention of the voters.
And I think if we don't do this 10 years from now, they're going to try to do this again. So I think this is helping the next commission because I think people instinctively like uniformity. And since you're not really changing the numbers a whole lot, you're just making them consistent. So I'm going to support this.
Mr. Morales?
Yeah, I have also a question for the maker of the motion, that's okay. Because you have this handy chart here, and it looks like, if I'm reading this correctly, it looks like referendums for two other charter counties, which is King and Pierce, are 8% and based on executive. And I'm wondering when you put these together, if you like looked at any examples or, you know, sort of looked at whether that increased the likelihood of things being repealed via referendum. Dug into that as well.
I did not dig in, if you're asking specifically for King and Pierce, I didn't dig into it specifically.
Commissioner Redding, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion to amend. And the motion to amend is to change 15% to 11%.
Second. Second that. Any discussion on that? Sorry.
I appreciate that amendment. I don't think 10% of the signatures gathered is insignificant. I think 1,200 signatures is 1,200 people and 1,200 voices. I don't see that as comparable. I would be more supportive of this if it was a straight across comparable number. I think 11% might bring it down to the other side, which would make it easier for folks to have their voices heard, which I'm leaning more in favor of. But I as it stands at 15, we would not be able to support that and increasing that threshold and decreasing the power of the people's voice. Could I ask Commissioner Redding what the 11% brings the number to?
I don't know. Do you have those figures?
9,024.
It would be, let's see, it would be
2,100 less.
yeah, considerably more than it takes for an initiative.
Commissioner Wright.
Do we know the number for 14%? Would that keep it essentially equivalent? Like which percent would keep it?
We have a motion on the floor.
That's true.
Not gonna have to-
Yeah, I'm just asking the question.
The motion is to amend from 15% to 11% of the executive race. Further discussion?
More comment on Chair. And so that 9,024 that the 11% would bring it to would still keep us in the middle, if I'm understanding this chart correctly, Commissioner Ordos, of the King, Pierce, Snohomish, Clark, San Juan, and Whatcom County. We would still be in the center of that for signatures required for referendums. Am I reading that right?
Chair, can I answer?
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so in a ranking, yes, but if you look at the actual cast of votes, the range is 6,500 to 20,000. So 9,000 puts us about 2,400-ish above King and Pierce, but 4,000 less than the next highest. Yeah. And you would ask, someone had asked 14%. May I answer that, Chair?
Sorry, say that again?
Someone had asked the signatures required on 14%. May I answer that? Sure. It is 11,486, which is within 300 of what we currently have. So it's as straight out as you could get unless you want to do a decimal. So it's like 13.7.
I just want to point out, we're looking at staying consistent with some of these other counties, that it's really not applicable here when we're looking at the amendments. They're at 20% of the gubernatorial race for those same counties, which is almost impossible, and we aren't taking that into effect. So just kind of keep that in mind, that there is huge differences there. So maybe they should follow us.
Just for reference, unless I missed something already saying this while I was trying to crunch numbers, but the keeping it at the exact same number of votes would be 13.6%.
I have a question for Commissioner Ordos. I'm just looking at this chart and it looks like in the column, for example, where it says signatures required for referendums, for King and Pierce County, the numbers are the same, and for Clark and Clallam County, those numbers are the same. So is that comparing 10% of the votes in Whatcom County to the requirement of those counties?
So what I did to equalize it out, so you could get, so that we can see where the ranking is apples to apples. I can't base it on their elections and have it be the same as ours and get the same numerical values, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
So it's not real live numbers for those
Okay.
counties.
It's comparative.
Yep, it's comparative.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right, we have a motion to amend this amendment proposal from 15% of the executive raise to 11% for signatures. Staff, can you please call the roll?
Caitlin Collins,
Yes.
Liz Derrick,
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss,
No,
Lindsey Graham Ellenboss,
No,
Colton Coltonfeld,
No.
Brad Kelly,
No.
Maya Morales. I'll vote yes. John Mutchler,
Yes.
Hannah Ortis,
No,
Joel Fitzjordan.
No.
Andrew Redding,
Yes.
Jessica Rienstra,
Yes.
Rod Stump,
nope,
Jennifer Wright,
No.
and Doug Chadwick.
No.
That motion fails 9-6. Going back to the original motion, which is for amendment proposal 20. Commissioner Ordos, can you clarify your motion? Just for, because I didn't write it down.
so the motion is to, for amendment 20, to change from gubernatorial to the executive race and to change from 8% to 15%. So it would be 8%, no longer 8% of the gubernatorial, it would then be 15% of the executive.
And clarifying question, is that motion to put this amendment forward to the voters?
Yes.
Can we still propose amendments?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, then, I'll propose 14%. So amendment
what percentage?
14,
Second.
because it's essentially equal.
Thank you. Second, any discussion? Go ahead.
Are you asking me to accept that as a friendly amendment?
I don't know, I'm proposing it as an amendment, maybe. I don't know, whatever you.
I'm willing to
I
accept it
think-
as a friendly amendment.
Is she not gonna
I don't
second?
know.
I seconded it,
Okay,
so now it belongs to the body.
okay. Is it as a friendly amendment or as an amendment? Because I kind of
No,
was
it's-
just
no, it's-
intending it as an amendment.
It's a, there is a decision on an amendment, it failed. And so the floor is back to the original motion, and it is open to a second amendment.
Okay, so I made
So
an
it's
amendment
an
and it was
amendment
seconded.
that you're making.
Okay, so and then if that fails, there's the vote on 15.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
You can still make amendments if that fails.
Okay, sure, not sure.
The reason I support lowering it by a small amount is, Commissioner Redding is correct. The process of referendum is to protect the minority party. It gives them a chance to say, we don't like what was just done. We're gonna go to the citizens and get signatures. So I think this is helpful for democracy, to not make it too hard. Whether it's 15 or 14, I'm gonna support either way. But I think 14 is moving in the right direction, which is why I voted for the 11. So I think 14 is helpful.
Ms. Morales?
I had two items. One, I was hoping that Commissioner Redding could clarify for the public what the initiative percentage that we had agreed to change it to, so that everyone is aware of that. And then also I wanted to just voice that I would probably prefer to see this in the 12 or 13% range. Just open.
You're asking to clarify on amendment.
On the one we passed, that if Commissioner Redding would just share that so that the public is reminded what the initiative, what the charter amendment.
So that one's at 15%. For charter amendments.
Commissioner Alves?
Well, I think we all realize it, and we may have just misspoke. because it doesn't protect the minority. Because we're talking about referendums. The whole issue of a referendum is it's a government in place. And in the issue of dealing and bringing a referendum, you're bringing it against something that the majority government did not necessarily care for. But the other side of that, I mean, if the majority government is out of sync with the public in general. In reality, in order to bring forth a referendum, you generally have to have, when you see how few referendums come forward, you have to have a groundswell in order to accomplish that purpose. One, to get the signatures on the ballot, and the secondary aspect is to get it approved. Nobody is going to go out and collect signatures for initiatives or referendums unless they think the issue is positive enough that they can get the voter support. So the numbers, as we're discussing them, are totally subject to the individual speaker's perception. But the reality on the situation is that keeping it as it relates to this getting the support of the public, and that's where we should be on everything we bring forth. The reality is, how simple is it going to be and how commonsensical is it for the voters to approve it? Because this is another one of those double-pronged issues where the voters have to convince themselves, just as we all have to, and we've had a concentration effort on it. So we want to make it as simple for the public as they look at that, to accept that, hey, this is not a change, it's just something that's made to make this more consistent. So for that reason, it doesn't make a lot of difference to me whether it's 15 or 14%. Those are pretty close. And so I would support this particular amendment.
Yeah, as Commissioner Collins pointed out earlier, even at 14%, it's still increasing the number of votes, of signatures required from what it is now. You'd have to go to 13% to where you would have it be a slight decrease from where it is now. So again, I can't support anything that increases the amount.
Sure. Tara Button Schoen, that's her correct name. Ashley Button, that's what it was, because I said things wrong. Ashley Button Schoen, who was leading the opposition to Prop 5's implementation, yes, for Whatcom kids. Her concern is paid signature gatherers, and she's the one who brought the opposition. So she was saying she wants the number maintained or increased, which was a surprise to me. And I hear her, she was saying outside entities can come in and just pay people for signatures now. The argument has been made that we're small potatoes, but the thing is our county's increased so much, that's the most likely thing to happen in the future. And it happens other places in the country. So I guess I would just point that out, that it's not like the will of the people, like a groundswell necessarily, can be paid signatures. Mr. Morales?
I would love to respond to that, if I may, with a note that we could certainly, as part of our charter commission, enact some rules around paid signature gatherers needing to wear a button that says, I am a paid signature gatherer, if they are paid.
We're just about to end this issue. We have an amendment to adjust the signature percentage from 15% down to 14% on referendums. Staff, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Garrett,
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss,
Yes.
Lindsey Graham Ellenboss, yes. Colton Coltonfeld,
Yes.
Brad Kelly,
Yes.
Maya Morales, I think I'm gonna say yes.
John Mutchler,
Yes.
Anna Ordos. Yes. Joel Jordan,
Yes.
Andrew Reddick,
Abstaining.
Jessica Reedstra. Yes. Rod Stone,
Yes.
Jennifer Wright,
Yes.
Doug Chadwick,
Yes.
Eamon Collins.
Yes.
And that amendment passes, 14 in favor with 1 abstaining. So now we're gonna go back to the original amendment. The original motion, excuse me, to put amendment 20 to the voters as amended. Staff, will you please call the roll?
Joe Ellenboss,
Yes.
Lindsey Graham Ellenboss,
Yes.
Colton Cottonfeld,
Yes.
Brad Kelly,
Yes.
Maya Morales,
Yes.
John Mutchler,
Yes.
Anna Ordos. Yes. Joel Jordan,
Yes.
Andrew Reddick,
No.
Jessica Reedstra,
Yes.
Rod Stone,
Yes.
Jennifer Wright,
Yes.
Doug Chadwick,
Yes.
Eamon Collins,
Yes.
Liz Darrah.
Yes. That motion passes 14 to 1. I just lost my place altogether. Okay, move on. The proposed amendment 27, having moved proposed amendment 26 to June 12th. And this is to clarify the powers and duties of independently elected officials and further clarify that independently elected officials are not directed by the executive. So I'm wondering if there are any public comments on amendment 27. Wait, Commissioner Chadwick, would you like to speak to your motion?
Real briefly, as written, it's pretty straightforward. Again, it's intended to clarify the language. Commissioner Mushler spoke of uniformity and consistency, trying to just clarify the duties and the powers of the other electeds and bring some light to the fact that the charter was modified in 1993. Those offices, auditor, assessor, treasurer, and sheriff, are spelled out in the state constitution, but they can be modified by this charter, and it has language point that out. While it may seem a slight language, remove some ambiguity, but it's intended to inform the voters, the citizens of the executive branch of county government, the fact that those other electeds don't work at the direction of the elected county executive. Certainly they're part of the executive branch, but they're within the executive branch. There are other executive departments such as the Parks Department, the Planning Department, the Health Department, and administrative offices like finance, IT, and those things. So again, I think that's a good thing. And for anybody that wants to run for one of those offices, to understand you are responsible and accountable for what goes on in that office. So if there is an issue with the treasurer or the sheriff or the auditor, that's where you should go first. So again, it's just clarifying that. We saw examples of some of our other electeds making decisions. There was a proposal earlier about extending the number of words that could be used in the voter's guide. Our auditor says I can do that. Our elected treasurer was there when we were talking about the budget and the fact that those quarterly reports weren't coming out of the executive's office, yet he generates a quarterly report on time that shows the balance of the county and the revenues, which is important information that all citizens and quite frankly, anybody involved in county government should be aware of. So that's the intent. I would propose that we move this amendment on to the voters.
Second.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I'm looking, where is the proposed amendment that we're sending to the voters? You've got specific areas here of changes, but we're certainly not going to submit all those to.
No.
What is the wording of the motion, our proposed motion that we submit to the council to submit?
It's basically clarifying the powers and duties of independently elected officials and further clarifying that independently elected officials are not directed by the executive.
Okay, I'm not opposed to that concept, but I'm a little worried whether we may need to refine that to make it on a simple reading. Because here's what I fear, and I've seen it multiple times before. Our attorney is probably not gonna get to do this because they're gonna want somebody that the council can control a little bit more to write the ballot titles for this. And if we don't have, if our message is not a little more clear in a few fewer words, we're gonna have a difficulty with this being not clear to the public. Is that making any sense to you? I mean, if it's not making sense, that's because I'm not speaking clearly enough. I mean, I'm not faulting anybody else's judgment. But does anybody else have a worry about that kind of phraseology being what we're voting to approve? We all understand the concept because we got several pages.
Right.
You know, the public won't have that.
Well, there will be explanations within the voter's guide.
Well, remember, most voters will not look at the voter's guide. They're gonna be they will give, with due diligence, they will read the ballot title as it's listed to vote yea or nay. But if that's not clear to them, this is gonna get a no vote, even though it's a very worthwhile presentation.
Commissioner Ray? So I'll address that in just a moment. I would say I strongly support voting yes for proposed amendment 27. I think it's really important for the public and people in those offices to know that they are not under the direction of the executive. And I've heard concerns that could be ambiguous in the way that government is carried out at times. As far as the clarifying language goes, do you have can you explain what part of it you think is not clear and like what you might say instead?
Well, the opening sentence basically indicates what it is. And the clarifications within it will, if the voters vote yes, those items would take place. But what's right now more important than anything else is what the public reads when they read the ballot title. And I would think that its opening sentence about clarifying that the other administrative officers are not necessarily under the control of the exec, the main message that we wish to impart.
I'm certainly happy to revise the description with a little more detail if this body would like to see that.
What, Madam Chair, if I then can suggest that we do go ahead and approve this subsequent to that vote, if we give it our approval, that the wording is brought forward to us again to give our favorable nod, if that's acceptable.
Commissioner Redding?
Yeah, first of all, I am strongly in favor of this. Second of all, I recognize the problem that Commissioner Ellenboss has brought up here, and particularly with regard to, it's too broad, I think, clarify the powers and duties of independently elected officials, because that's not so much what's happening here. It's really clarify that independently elected officials are not directed by the executive. I think a simplification there would actually make it a lot more clear what this actually does. And I wonder if we couldn't, I don't know if I could do that by amendment, if you're agreeable to that.
I'd entertain a friendly amendment if somebody wants to propose one.
I'd like to propose that it then read just clarify that independently elected officials are not directed by the executive. That's essentially what it does when you look at the detailed language. Would that satisfy your concern, Joe?
Really not, because I think it continues to confuse the situation because it's not enough information. But it's not, I don't have the authority to say or modify what you're suggesting, but you're getting in the right direction. I would rather have someone having the time to sit down, or a group of someone to sit down and try and look at this, not from the concept of what we want to do, but the concept of how we want to present it.
Commissioner Ordos?
The one thing that I might add to Commissioner Redding's description, like maybe list out which elected officials rather than other electeds, and then put, albeit part of the executive branch, are not under the, oh goodness, Commissioner, I can't remember the last part of that, but identify that although they're part of the executive branch, are not under the direction of
Do you
the
want to spell out
executive.
those 4 offices?
Yeah, that would be a good idea, because that's exactly what it does in the actual text. The county assessor, the county auditor, the county treasurer, and the county sheriff.
Commissioner Morales?
Yeah, I would like to just call into a question mark this phrasing in lieu of the powers and duties provided by general law in section 3.52 powers and duties, providing the powers and duties of the auditors. And my question there is, I'm not sure about that phrasing. I think that might be a conflict of laws problem and might get us into some wavy area. So I'm wondering if you vetted that with an attorney yet, that particular phrasing.
So I did, and that's why I added that's actually why I ran it by Kellen, and that's why it says in lieu of the powers, because he's, there's already been a modification to the current charter language when, as far as the county auditor, understanding that other modifications could be made. And maybe Kellen wants to.
May I just clarify?
Yeah.
That I think that the second half of that sentence to me raises no issues, that the county auditor shall have the powers and duties described herein. But I think that first phrasing is just giving me a major question mark. So I just want to put that up.
Okay. The portion that above that in the sentence above or as modified by this charter, you're okay with that language?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Because the charter does modify general law, so maybe it's just that it's redundant, but I also just do have a question mark about whether it does give any additional powers or different powers than we have actually described. I just, yeah. Maybe.
Sure, the auditor in Whatcom County is a little bit special among the elected offices because there are a number of powers and duties that are ascribed to county auditors by state law, but as a home rule charter county, we can ascribe different powers and duties and put them in different offices or in different places. We've done that with the auditor when we created our financial system, taking away the financial powers and duties and some other duties that are prescribed in general law. So if we have a sentence in there that says all the offices will have such powers and duties as prescribed in general law, that's going to cause a problem because that's not true for the auditor. The other language to make sure everybody understands the auditor's powers and duties are in the charter, they are not what's prescribed by the general state statute.
So you don't, can I ask a clarifying question? So in lieu of doesn't present any problems? That phrasing in lieu of? Is that, I feel like that just raises a bunch of big general questions.
I felt that was appropriate to show that we aren't leaving any of the powers described by state law with the auditor. There, it's entirely defined by the charter, not by their statute.
Okay. I
know there was some talk about ballot titles. I just wanted the commission to know that my duties have included preparing ballot titles on drafting and revising ballot titles for whatever you send to voters.
Well, as it relates to that, just the reason I stated that is in the past, we've typically been assigned a prosecutor. But when we turn it over to the council decides who they want to have in conversation with the sitting prosecutor, who they want to have do that for them, because they then feel it's their property as opposed to the commission's property. And I'm just going based on what historically has been done, that, you know, we feel we work something out with our assigned counsel, and we don't have any say, and things are often modified by the council's counsel.
I see.
Yeah.
Obviously, the elected prosecutor can assign whoever he pleases. He's not giving me any indication he's going to assign anyone.
Commissioner Wright. Okay, so to be clear, you're talking about the current title of proposed amendment 27 is unclear. I wanted that to be clear when it goes forward, yes? Okay, so I have a proposed potential friendly amendment, but I don't want to put it out as a friendly amendment until I get a vibe check on it. So I rewrote it to say, clarify that the county executive does not direct the powers and duties of the independently elected offices of the county assessor, auditor, treasurer, and sheriff. That seems like it's pretty clear and keeps the like heart of your title fully. Are we okay with that as a, I mean, vibe check? Anyone have an issue with that?
No, agreed.
Okay. Yeah, so then we're gonna propose it as a friendly
Do
amendment.
we just ask them to change the title, I think?
Yeah, it's a friendly amendment and he's accepted it, then we can move on with that language.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I accept that.
Okay, seeing no further,
I'm sorry, can I ask one more clarifying question? I'm really stuck on this legal issue here. I would like to ask one more question, because I just don't want us to risk doing something we don't understand, which can sometimes happen when you mess with language. So let's say that our auditor decides that she no longer wants to do mail-in ballots. Does this now give her the power to say, we're only gonna have voting in person?
Answer that. I believe a separate part of the charter under elections indicates that our elections are done by general law, and refers back to state statutes for how we conduct elections. So unless that got changed, we are subject to the state statutes. I haven't looked into this, but I would be surprised if we could change how we do elections if they're done statewide. But there is part of the charter that specifically says that.
Okay, just extra, thank you for being here. Extra clarification, if I could, from council. The reason that sentence in lieu of the powers and duties provided by general law exists is because the county auditor's powers and duties were in the before times changed by the charter, right? Is that what you're saying? Okay, just making sure I understand you. Good. We're all on the same page then. Okay.
And I did include some of the background on the changes in 1993 that were made.
Yes, thank you for doing that. Okay, we have a motion to approve amendment 27 and send it to the voters. Commissioner Ray?
I'm still confused by one thing, and that is that you don't usually, as I understand it, just have a ballot title. I mean, proposed amendment title. You also have some text that follows it, right? Where you're actually showing what's deleted and what's added. Is that correct? I mean, that's what I did on each of mine, so I don't know that.
So that's,
It's all there.
Right.
Those changes are in red.
That's in the,
Okay, but
that's in the voters pamphlet.
Yeah.
The title will be on the ballot, so some people would have to look further.
Yeah.
So they're trying to make it as friendly to that quick glance as possible.
And this
But
isn't the title going before the voters, but it's setting people up for success who are creating that title.
So
Right, we're making sure the amendments title.
okay.
what I'm trying to
Sorry,
clarify
that's all
here is, will the voters?
No, I don't hear you.
What I'm trying to clarify is, will the voters see what the changes are?
Yes. As with all of the amendments that we have moved forward to the voters, they'll be able to see what the changes are.
Okay, there won't be all this text that we're seeing here, because that's way too much. It'll only be the changes, right?
The voters should have ballot title, explanatory statement of what the changes are, and the full text of the amendment showing what the changes are.
Okay, and
But not depending on the
and we'll have it, you're telling me.
Sorry.
I'm just panicking because I know we can't put all of this on the ballot. What?
I believe what he's getting at is that when it goes to voters, it'll only include the sections that are changed, I imagine. Good practice would be to.
That's just all I'm trying to clarify.
Right, the sections that are changed are perhaps the whole chapter. Generally, how I've seen it is the full text of these amendments usually towards the back of the voters pamphlet. They do run lengthy in some of the pamphlets I've seen.
Oh, okay.
Some of the examples that I think we get
Yeah.
from staff are what I would envision seeing, where it shows the changes.
Okay, thank you for
Commissioner
clarifying.
Muchler, thank you for your patience.
Oh, that's okay. I've got 7 kids. Patience is my middle name. So my frame of reference in trying to understand this, and I don't fully understand it yet, it's gonna lead to a question. I was a mayor of a small city, so I hired the chief of police. And I could fire the chief of police. I hired the finance director and county treasurer.
I could just, I mean, it was all residing in the city's chief executive, the strong mayor city. My question about this is, are we addressing, has this been a problem needing to be addressed over the last 50 years, or is this something we're trying to address a recent occurrence? Are we trying to fix a current situation, or is this, can we say that for the last 50 years, this has been a problem of these roles being misunderstood and mixed up?
I can answer that in my, having working for one of the elected positions and in my discussions with other electeds, there is some confusion about who they take their direction from. I think it's important for citizens to understand, the employees that work for those offices to understand. And again, people interchange elected office and elected department, or executive office and executive department. An executive office would be the office of the elected treasurer or the auditor, the assessor. The executive department would be, under the executive branch, would be the Parks Department, the Health Department. Those directors are hired by the county executive. The sheriff, the treasurer, the auditor, and the assessor are elected by the people and accountable to the people. That's kind of what it's trying to clarify. So there was, so one of these electeds was voicing their just concerns that people didn't understand that, and just clarifying expectations for those offices. One, if you want to run for one of those offices or you're in that elected position.
Yeah, I just gonna say, has there historically been an encroaching of authority and this role and this role over the last 50 years? Has this been going on, or is this a recent occurrence?
Yeah, I don't know that.
I mean,
I wouldn't say it's a widespread problem. You know, they work through it, but I think there's just a lack of understanding too with the executive branch of county government. I don't think a lot of people understand that.
Commissioner Wright? So I would say second, what Commissioner Chadwick is expressing very diplomatically and gently, and say, I know that that is an issue of confusion. I don't think any of us has institutional knowledge to go back that many years. And I think if there's a new executive in the future, we can't be guaranteed that the issues that there may be concerns could arise will be resolved. Also, I think for the very reason that you pointed out, when you were hiring people in those roles as a mayor, it's helpful to have it clarified that at the county level it's different.
Anywhere else? Yeah, I've just, I think I'm hearing the intent of this, and that there's a desire to clarify that, for instance, someone that the executive does not supervise directly someone who's under the auditor. I think that's what I'm understanding.
Correct.
Can I say something? It's that he doesn't supervise the auditor.
Okay, so I want to just voice that I will be voting no on this for two reasons. I'm still sketched out by this phrase in lieu of a little bit. I read a lot of bills. One word can make a huge difference. That makes me really nervous. I also, there's a couple of other words up in the executive office section that confuse me, because when I think about our government, I think of it as branches. And so to me, these departments, they are departments and they fall within the executive branch. They are not the legislative branch and they are not judicial. So I am concerned about creating independent offices that don't have any kind of branch hierarchy whatsoever. And so I'm going to be voting no on this for that reason. I'm a little bit concerned about splintering a branch and what that might do. I'm not really hearing any kind of like implications spun out of what this could mean literally. And so I feel like I need that in order to give it a vote. So but I appreciate you.
Commissioner Fitzgerald.
I just want to clarify that as well, that I see the effect of this amendment doing is very much in line with the precedent set at the state level, where the Attorney General does not answer to the governor and the state treasurer does not answer to the governor. It's really clarifying that piece of it. I don't see it as creating any kind of splintering of the executive branch. Just for me, it feels like a clarification. That's the reason I'll be voting yes. It feels very much like a broccoli proposal, but will clarify intent of the law.
Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, also, in here, you'll see that there's one of these, I don't know what you call these organizational structure chart, yeah, so here, and you'll see on page 37, and you'll see the kinds of mess ups that occur because we don't have a clarification where it does show the county executive as being over the county assessor, county auditor, prosecuting attorney, sheriff, and treasurer. So he has it over the prosecuting attorney as well over in this thing. So these are the kinds of things we have to make sure that we're really clear about.
Let me pass. Okay.
If you're gonna if you're gonna start voting, I have nothing more to say.
Okay, it seems to me like this body has explored the topic thoroughly. Did something come to mind? I remembered. It is that and my understanding is they're already separate. It's just clarifying that they're separate, and like, it needs to be clarified that they're separate because somebody who made a Whatcom County government organizational structure, it's clearly evident they did not understand that, even though in our charter, we say it's independent. So it's just clarifying what's already there, and the evidence or the necessity of that is right here. This is from 2011, 2012, which I think predates our
I couldn't
current
even find,
executive.
now they just break it down by department.
Yeah, so.
Staff, could you please call the roll?
Lindsey Graham Allenboss? Yes. Colton Tottenbaugh?
Yes.
Brad Kelly?
Yes.
Maya Morales? No. Ron Hutchinson?
Yes.
Anna Ordos? Yes. Joel Jordan?
Yes.
Andrew Redding?
Yes.
Jessica Greenstreet? Yes. Rod Stump?
Yes.
Jennifer Wright?
Yes.
Doug Chadwick?
Yes.
Damon Collins?
Yes.
Liz Darrow?
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss?
Yeah.
That amendment passes 14-1. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and turn to our deep dive. This is our final examination of the charter before the public. Super excited about this.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Did I miss something to propose amendment 26? Did we?
We moved that to June 12th. At the
Why
beginning.
did we do that? I mean, I heard some comments about that you're talking about when we checked the agenda tonight.
What?
There were just some outstanding questions from commissioners that we wanted to answer and further explore.
Okay. Obviously, I was prepared to do this 3 meetings ago. And my reason for that is because we are dillying and dallying over a lot of things, and we need to get things off of the shelf. And so please, let's not delay any longer.
And I will say, thank you. For the benefit of the public, we have 2 meetings left on the calendar where we can vote on these things, so I would say bring a sleeping bag. Great. Would any commissioners like to comments or questions on the preamble or Article 1, the powers of the county? Go ahead.
Just for the benefit, I guess, of the public, as well as anyone who might not be preamble focused. I just wanted to kind of mention that a preamble is sort of a tone setter and an intent setter. It tells you about the intent of law. So whether it's like in a bill or whether it's in a constitution, it's giving us, as Commissioner Wright would say, vibes for what is intended, what is the law intended to do. And so, yeah, in that way, I think we can look at our preamble like that.
Does anybody want to know how the preamble came about?
For sure.
The original group of 21 of us were predominantly on the conservative side. 5 or 6 members were on the liberal side. One of them, maybe the only guy younger than me, was it was fair to call him a hippie. That was, we weren't too far away from hippies in 1977. And Fred Larson was, I believe he was a longshoreman. So he's a union guy, but his quality of life and everything was much looser than the rest of us. And he liked to speak in language that was typical of the outside element, shall we speak. But he was a valuable individual in his input. He probably spoke more clearly on what things should be than some of the other people, well, maybe than the most of the other people who had served a long time in government. Because he spoke with the public's interest and with an appreciation of his environment. And when he came to us with that original, you'd have to look back at the original one before we morphodized it and came up with, you know, terms that are more politically correct and everything. He came up with something that none of us could disagree with. And the League of Women Voters sidled up alongside us and said, you know, that may be, his wording may be the thing that sells the charter. And so you don't want to short circuit that type of thinking, because while the politics of Whatcom County has changed a lot in the last few years, it's gone more to Fred Larson's way of thinking, I think, than the conservative side had back then. It's kind of like John F. Kennedy was more conservative than most Republicans today. So that's from whence came the preamble. And if you read back what was proposed in 1977, it caused you to stop and think. If nobody else has any input, that's just the historical input.
Well, I just want to say thank you for that, and I would agree with both Commissioner Morales and Commissioner Ellenboss that the preamble does set the tone, and so I think it's surprising to see over time. I don't know that the public has this benefit. You can find it on the website, or you can look at mine during the break. There has been very little change to the preamble since 1978. The last change to the preamble was made in 1995, and I know we have a new business proposal coming, and I'm excited about that because I think it's where we start in the document if we're not picking the document to pieces, and so it gives us a path to set ourselves on, and I appreciate that. Thank you for that story about Fred Larson. And, any other comments? Thoughts on the preamble? Shall we talk about general powers?
I'm just really curious if anyone in this room knows where to find these. So I'm just looking at section 1.51. This has kind of stuck with me for the entirety of this mission, the performance and strategic planning section. And I see that the executive and legislative branches are supposed to engage in long-term strategic planning. They're supposed to set performance measurements. I'm just really curious, does anyone know where to find those? So I haven't personally run into them in all the searching I've done.
I would say probably the closest you'll get to that is in the budget document. Each department puts forward their objectives.
Okay.
That would probably be the most logical place to look. But as far as countywide, like a 5-year county plan, no. Individual departments may generate them.
Okay.
Well, it says here there's an annual report during the first week of May, which just happened. So did that happen? I actually don't read this.
I believe they do produce an annual report.
I think there's also a comprehensive plan, no? Yeah, so I think that would fall under this area.
Sounds like it's all over the place. There's not the performance measures.
Okay, Commissioner Elmas?
Yes, as it relates to that as well. reason I'm excited about Joel's proposal, well, Joel and company, is we originally had performance audits in the charter. And the auditor's office actually had an individual whose title was performance audit. And the auditor didn't like that because, well, I'll just go out on a limb and say because she was the most written up auditor by the state audits. And it wasn't comfortable for her, so she gradually moved to get the council to propose an ordinance to do away with it. And as I've said before, most times that the council proposes an ordinance and puts it before the public, it's to make it comfortable for government and not necessarily good for the public. The idea being when we submit something, it's normally recognizing the public's interest and should benefit the public. But as far as performance audits, it would be interesting to see. I mean, the gentleman that spoke to us tonight obviously recognizes the benefit of them. And one thing he didn't mention is often there are individuals that are covered by a performance audit and they can be exonerated or their position supported to benefit the general public good. But there do exist, and they are bound documents, exactly 6 performance audits conducted by the county county auditor, I believe over about a 12-year period of time. And they weren't very good. In other words, they didn't give very much information, but that kind of thing exists too. And it's sorely lacking. I mean, we have the opportunity to see, and that we ask for information as commission due to Mr. Redding's bringing us the various data in the beginning. And we not only don't have a performance on it to review that, we don't have the response either. And it would be really nice to have. So those comments are, once again, let's giddy up.
Commissioner Wright. So just thinking about what Commissioner Klumfeld had brought up, it does appear like in the annual report, I'm curious if there is in that annual report the outcome of the strategic planning between the executive and legislative branch. Because it's called performance and strategic planning. And then it says the executive and legislative branches will engage in long-term strategic planning. And then the executive shall present an annual report during the first week of May. I'm assuming that's the annual report toward performance and strategic planning. I'm just wondering if they're both in there.
It would be my concern as it relates to that wording, Madam Chair, and that any activity that we attempt to undertake on this would be something that would be brought to us by the council or by various officers within county government, because they would be the ones that could demonstrate the suffering from not having sufficient data. And I'd be hard pressed, of course I'm the least bright of this group, to come up with what type of wording we would need as it relates to further enforcing that particular concept. Just an idea.
Yeah, sorry, I'm talking a lot tonight, but I have heard from various members of the legislative branch that they would like to see the strategic planning piece. So I think that's something that we might be able to get.
They've got the power to get it, remember that.
Commissioner Ordos.
I did find the annual comprehensive financial report on the Whatcom County's website. However, the last one documented that's public facing is 2023. It's under the finance department for anybody who would like
I would like to, if I may, just speak to a thing that's been hanging out there for a little bit, amendment number 21, because that amendment was going to be to section 1, and it would have been to section 1.1, specifically where it says the rights of the individual citizen shall be guaranteed under the constitutions of the United States and the state of Washington. And I think in good faith with respect to section 1.2, where it says it shall be the policy of the county to enhance in every way possible intergovernmental cooperation. Myself and a number of other commissioners wanted to find out if there was a way that we could include the Point Elliott Treaty or treaty rights in general in that language of 1.11. And so as the, I don't know, in partnership with other commissioners, but the work that we did to find out from the Mixac Nation leadership and the Lummi Nation leadership, they asked us to not move forward with that. And so I would like to just ask that staff change that on number 6, page number 6, under 21 to say withdrawn. Because it kind of bugs me to have it hanging out there and then realizing that maybe the public doesn't even know that we did that work in the background. And with respect to intergovernmental relationships, it's really important to me to honor that request, whether or not it's something I initially had thought of, and it has no bearing. So that amendment is withdrawn, leaving us with one less thing to do next time. Thank you, staff, for that. Any other comments or questions on this section? Commissioner Aldenboss, go ahead.
Well, I just was gonna ask about the speaker, the gentleman that talked during the public input part about our office continuing on through December 31st. And is there a more appropriate place on the agenda tonight to talk a little bit about that?
I'll tell you, there's an amendment under new business that does exactly that, so maybe we could put it there.
Okay, I'll reserve my question.
I guess I should just mention here that we will be looking at newly filed amendments to deal with this section. I put forward a pretty hefty amendment that amends citizens' rights 1.11 and adds a bunch of new sections. And so that will be, that's in the packet, but it will also be up for approval to move forward. And the reason that I did that is just thinking about the fact that this has stayed fairly similar since 1978. And we have had, wow, so many changes to the way that we live now. And so thinking about this.
Well, I'm gonna suggest we take a break here, if it's the will of the body, and then deal with the whole stack of new amendments after we had cookies. Oh shoot, what time is it? Okay, we are gonna take a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene at, okay, 11-minute break, reconvene at 7:40. Yeah.
We worked out the numbers of the
Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting back to order at 7:40. I want to say thank you to Commissioner Pitts-Jordan for the cookies. Might be just what we need to get through this next section here. We're gonna go ahead and get started with new business. I'll wait for Commissioners Ellen Boss and Redding to be ready. Okay, so we have 15 new amendments, and so I'm gonna ask for each commissioner to speak briefly, emphasis on the briefly to their amendment, recognizing that this isn't the discussion, this is the introduction, and we'll get into it at a future meeting if so voted. So we're gonna start with proposed amendment 15 by Commissioner Mutchler. This one will be considered if amendment 11 fails on June 12th. So in order to consider it later, we gotta introduce it now. This is the last chance to do it. So I'm wondering, Commissioner Mutchler, if you want to speak to your.
Yeah, I'll just introduce it very briefly. I share some of the concerns that Commissioner Redding has about compensation of elected officials. When I was mayor, I was responsible to help setting salaries. And I came up with a little sentence that it kind of gave me the parameters of what I was dealing with. I want my staff to be well paid. I want them to be well paid, but I don't want them to be overpaid. What the heck does that mean? It worked for me. Well paid, but not overpaid. There's some parameters to this. So if we're not able to come up with some kind of method from the charter to decide on salaries, I suggest that in the section in the charter that's dealing with the salary commission, and you can read that yourself on page 44, there can be a values statement that I think you're gonna get 80% of the voters to approve of that. And it provides some guidance to your salary commission as to what the citizens expect. And it's one sentence, and it says that the commission, the salary commission, assuming that it still exists, shall ensure that salaries are fair, modest, and the context is elected officials, are fair, modest, and reflective of the time commitment and level of professionalism expected of public servants who serve not for personal gain, but in service to the residents and interests of Whatcom County. So in my view, this would be a helpful tool to the salary commission if it continues to do their work. It's more than a feel-good thing. It's that, hey, there are some guidelines here. So I would like to see this be the immediate amendment looked at if amendment, is there 10? That it doesn't move any further forward. I don't mean that to discourage that or anything, not an attack or a subversive method here, but I thought that we can get something out of this.
It is amendment 10, not 11.
Oh, okay, it's listed as 11, but I hear what you're saying. This is the one about salaries. Thank you for the clarification.
I think it says 10.
Oh, okay. In any case, do you want to put that in the form of a motion?
I move that this item is discussed and voted upon after the commission votes on, is it 10? After it votes on 10.
Second.
Further discussion?
Can I motion a friendly amendment? To this amendment? Is it not a good time to do that?
It might be better if it's actually, we talk about this. This is more scheduled whether we want to talk about this.
As in wait? Okay, I'll wait.
Okay. The motion is to discuss and vote on proposed amendment 15. After discussing and voting on amendment 12, should that amendment fail? Do I have that right? 10.
I think it's 10.
I can't pick numbers, I swear. No, you're correct, it's 10. Okay,
You got it.
okay, now I have it, for real. Okay, any discussion?
Okay, now it's time.
if I could clarify, are you talking about the time for an amendment will be when we are discussing and voting? Or what
Yes.
I'm hearing from you is you're wanting to propose. an
I'd love to
amendment.
move it forward in a slightly different form. And just propose that, the first half of the sentence, be accepted and the second be struck.
It's my view, Chair, that that would take place if we decide, we may decide we not need to do this. We may pass Commissioner Redding's proposal, this goes out the window. That's, I don't want to waste time on it until we give full attention and respect to Commissioner Redding's previous.
Commissioner Ellenboss?
Yes, I would just ask that you follow the orders of the day and we just give a yay or nay to the proposed amendment at this point rather, because we got 14 of them.
Yeah, heard.
Okay.
Is there any objection to deciding this by consent? Okay, all those in favor of discussing this proposed amendment 10 fails, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to proposed amendment 28 by Commissioner Redding to change the vote threshold for charter review amendments by the Charter Review Commission. Commissioner Redding, would you like to briefly speak to this?
Yes, in fact, interestingly enough, this came up in my original meeting with Commissioner Joe Ellenboss, who was expressing to me that he was really unhappy with what had happened 10 years ago when the county council was the one that placed this on the ballot.
Illegally in combination with the prosecuting attorney's office.
Yeah, so in any rate, that's how it got on the ballot. It was not from the Charter Review Commission, it was from the county council, and it was done for partisan purposes, if I may say so, because they were, there had been a Republican majority, and they were fearing the same thing would happen again, and they wanted to have some kind of insurance against it. And I think, you know, you've heard it from me before, I don't like supermajorities in general. And I think that, you know, we're all elected very fairly from 5 districts by popular vote. And all we do, we don't actually determine anything. All we do is we enable things to be put to the voters, which is very different from, say, a county council, which is able to actually pass ordinances directly. So what I had promised Commissioner Ellenboss at that point, that I would support him in that objective of trying to rectify this. And let me emphasize, this has no effect whatsoever on anything we do. This would only affect the 2035 one, and none of us have any idea what 2035 will look like politically, which is kind of a good thing. We shouldn't be doing this on the basis of trying to second guess who's going to have more votes on there. In any ways, we're supposed to be nonpartisan. And so that's why I'm putting that for.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I would second it.
But there's no.
Since my words were so frequently spoken repeated by Mr. Redding.
I heard you, Commissioner Ellenboss. We don't have a motion yet. Could you give us
a motion? I'll make the motion to place it on the.
I will second it.
Okay.
But of course, my desire was that this body take on the council and the county government for their illegal actions. And that's more than the particular item that Andrew has brought up. But his way of bringing it up brings it before us to discuss and deal with. And so for that reason, I support our considering this.
Thank you. We have a motion to place proposed amendment 28 on a future agenda for discussion and vote. Is there any objection to deciding this by consent? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
We have 2 opposed and 13 in favor.
Can I clarify who the 2 opposed were?
Commissioner Mutchler and Commissioner Scott. Moving on to proposed amendment 29, Commissioner Ellenboss. related to the prosecuting attorney and the council's role for ballot initiatives.
Yeah, so this is an amendment that's coming from talking to several constituents. This is being brought to me from the public, and it is intended to protect those citizen-driven processes around initiatives and amendments. There will be a couple of changes. I would probably delay this introduction, except for we don't have that ability tonight, just in regards to some of the feedback from Kellen that just came yesterday. So we knew that it was a possibility, and that's why the amendment is marked. I do want to move that we introduce it for introduction, and we can go over those changes at that time.
Second.
We have any discussion? Any objection to approving this by consent? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, proposed amendment 30 by Commissioners Lindsay Ellenboss, Kaltenfeld, and Ordos is requiring council members to hire dedicated aides. Would any of the sponsoring commissioners like to speak to this?
I can start a little bit. This again is in response to some feedback that we've gotten from community members, and also aligns with a couple other amendments that have been presented. There's some work to be done on it, and we're kind of working on that, but again, because of the time crunch, we're asking for it to be introduced tonight. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the intent of this proposal. That's why I just wanted to jump on this. You know, I think we kind of are seeing some of the effects of our council members not having the support that they need, right? This is a pretty standard thing for most counties to have, right, to support for their council members. Of course, you know, this in some way doesn't change a ton, but it does set very clearly that there's an expectation that they need some votes, that might not happen otherwise. And I think it's good to send it to a vote of the people. So thank you for putting this together.
Can we have a motion to open this for discussion?
So motion to introduce.
I will second.
Okay. Commissioner Muchler?
Yeah. County council can do this today. Now,
A lot of these things.
and they're big boys and girls, and they need this, they can do this now. I'm gonna come back to my previous concerns that we're trying to micromanage council. If they could do this today, they could budget this today, and I'm sure how helpful it is for us to tell them what to do here.
Did you have anything?
I had a question just because it was gonna have more review, and so I was just sort of wondering about whether like there'd be clarity around like, you know, they can elect to hire a joint aide, but like how many of them, you know, just sort of like the specifics. So I think it sounds like you're gonna flesh that out more.
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Ordos.
The only thing that I would add in looking at Snohomish did a performance audit last year, and they used Whatcom County in their comparison along with Pierce and King. And those other three charter counties have council aides. So King County has 35, Pierce has 7, Snohomish has 5.
We have a motion to place proposed amendment 30. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Who's gonna pay for this? Is this coming out of, you say the county council? Are they paying it out of their own pocket, or is it going to the tax dollar?
So I will say that's part of what we are going to be working on. That was important to us as well, that we are not a burden on an already strained budget. So that will be addressed.
Go ahead, Commissioner
An
Ross.
idea, internships or fellowships?
Possibly.
The motion is to place proposed amendment 30 on a future meeting agenda for discussion and vote. Any objection to deciding this by consent? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Was that a no from Commissioner Muchler? Okay, we have
Mr. Scrooge.
13 in favor, Commissioner Muchler voting no, and Commissioner Winstra abstaining. All right. Okay, next we have proposed amendment 32 by Commissioners Fitzgerald, Collins, and Kaltenfeld on ranked choice voting for Charter Review Commission elections. Would any of the sponsoring commissioners like to speak to this amendment? Commissioner Short, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Proposed amendment 32 is really seeking to strike the balance between a lot of the hope that we've heard for what ranked choice voting could bring, with a lot of the comment we've heard from the opposite side on some of the understandable anxieties. The fact that this is a novel system that is not currently used anywhere in the state, and this really seeks to establish kind of a pilot with the Charter Review Commission, and allows a pretty long runway to hopefully minimize any fiscal impacts that could arise from that. So would ask for the body support on moving this forward for discussion, and would move to place this on the agenda for the June 12th meeting.
I'll second that.
Oh, Commissioner Elmas, go ahead.
I'm curious what this proposed amendment is. We had an amendment as it relates to ranked choice voting, and we had a couple of suggested alternatives. Is this a compilation of, or is it an entirely different situation?
It's really just narrowing it. It's a very narrow proposal, just dealing with the Charter Review Commission, and not dealing with the council, not dealing with any of the separately elected, but allowing for basically a test run of the sort of system. Commission, that way the commission could come back the next time around and take a look at the result, take a look at the data, decide whether or not this was something that worked or something that did.
Okay, so that, my question is just getting to make sure we get this in the proper category. This is not, well, it couldn't be a substitute. Well, yes, it could be a substitute, but because it's a whole bulk of the document. You can't have a substitute in subsequent meeting.
Yeah.
Unless it would be of this length and this size. So I'm wanting to know in my mind, which works differently than most of yours, and that's maybe my problem. What this actually is. Where are we with anything else that has been submitted to us? Is this completely new and different? Because we have to be careful how we move it in order for it to be consistent with Roberts. Because if we're not consistent with Roberts, then any action on this could end up being null and void.
For clarification, proposed amendment 31, we voted after the committee of the whole last time to move that forward for discussion and to be on a future meeting agenda. So that one is the one that we discussed at length in that meeting. This one is new business because this is the first time we're seeing this amendment be introduced. So amendment 31 is still coming. It's just not a part of new business because we already discussed it and made a choice to put that on a future.
Okay, so technically we have two before us then.
Yeah.
As it relates. Okay, that's what I was wanting to clarify.
Okay, so we have a motion. You go
They're in my eye.
right ahead. A motion to place proposed amendment 32 on a future meeting agenda. Any objection to deciding this by consent? Oh, is that a hand up?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I've had conversations with a couple of commissioners, left-handed one and a right-handed one, and I'm intrigued by this idea of just running ranked choice voting for the commission. Then I started thinking about it, and I called up the auditor about other stuff and asked her about what if we did that, because she was concerned about the cost of the software and the training to do ranked choice. She said it would be the exact same cost, and you're only benefiting one election. And then I thought about it. It seems like our current method of choosing commissioners is a type of ranked choice. You have 10 people, you pick 3, or you have 12 people, you pick 3. There's a type of ranking that's going on in there. So I'm going to vote yes to move this for discussion, but I'm unpersuaded at this point. So I wanted to share those concerns so you know the bar is high.
I can't imagine how many pages it's going to be.
Commissioner Stumper, do you have a comment?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think we should just vote on it, and if we vote, instead of doing the raise our hands or.
Oh, you'd like a roll call on
Yes,
whether to
please.
place it on a future
Sorry.
agenda? Okay, that's fine. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Colton Feltz,
Yes.
Brad Kelly,
No.
Maya Morales, abstain. John Muchler,
Yes.
Anna Portos, yes.
Joel Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Andrew Reddick,
Yes.
Jessica Riemstra,
Yes.
Brad Stump,
No.
Jennifer Wright,
Yes.
Doug Chadwick,
Yes.
Damon Collins,
Yes.
Liz Darrow,
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss,
Yes.
and Lindsey Graham Ellenboss.
Yes.
That motion passes. Oh boy. 12 in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 abstention. Okay, moving on to proposed amendment 33. Commissioners Fitzgerald, Riemstra, Wright, and myself on fiscal reserve requirements. Would any of the sponsoring commissioners like to speak to the amendment? Commissioner Fitzgerald, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that fiscal reserve requirements or fiscal reserve policies are incredibly important to the operation of county government and making sure that all of the obligations within a single county budget are able to be met. That being said, I do not currently believe that the current structure is fundamentally broken in any way, and this is something that could go in the county code and have the same effect. And given the amount of work that we have before us in the next 2 meetings, we'll move to withdraw amendment proposal 33.
Second that. Discussion.
What was the motion to?
To withdraw.
Oh, thank, oh,
Any opposed to deciding this by consent? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
point of order, if
Yes.
you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm not sure we can vote positively on a negative motion. I think there's just no motion when it got done. I mean, I'm gonna defer to Mr. Roberts and some of that. I don't
Is
think
a
you
motion to withdraw not a positive motion?
I don't know. Doesn't sound very positive to me.
Oh,
But I don't care. I'm just wondering, this felt kind of weird to me.
I think we voted yes to withdraw.
That's fine, it's fine.
It's withdrawn.
Has been withdrawn. Okay, looking at proposal amendment 34 by Commissioner Kaltenfeld on an office of the ombuds. Would you like to speak to this amendment?
For sure, yeah, I'll keep it brief, since we did vote on this last time. I did want to bring it up for another vote for 2 reasons. One, because we had a couple commissioners who weren't here the last meeting, and I was curious to get their thoughts on it. But 2, I would also like to make a amendment to this language. It wasn't included here, but I have the exact language ready to go. And so I'll include this in a motion, but basically adding a section or adding a paragraph to the end of the existing language here to say that the county council shall place a charter amendment on the 2032 general election ballot, asking voters if this section of the charter shall be maintained. The idea being that in 2027, this office will be authorized to be, will be up and running, and it will have a period of about 5 years to operate, to show some results for voters. And, I'm certainly aware of the current budget situation and the concerns of some of my colleagues who are worried about giving this office a blank check to sort of expand and grow and operate without accountability. And this is a reflection of that. I believe in my heart that this office would be well utilized by citizens and was going to do some really good work. And I feel very confident that in 5 years, they will be up and running and doing work that's worthy of voters' confidence. And therefore, I am willing to make a bet, I guess, that this office is going to be successful. And so I will invite my colleagues to join me in making that bet. Commissioner Mutchler, you had asked at the last meeting, can the council do this? And I replied, yes, they could. They still can to a degree. But here is what that including this language onto this does differently. It's certainly possible that the council could pass to do this themselves. They could vote to allocate money without consent of the people to run this office without checking in on citizens. But us putting this forward does now is bring that to the voters in a way that they would not otherwise get a chance to vote on. That's, as far as I know, has never really been done for an office in Whatcom County, so we're certainly raising the bar. And I don't know of any other office that would have the requirement to go back to the people and really prove its mettle. So I think we're setting a very high bar for this office. And a bar that would not be raised if the council decides to do this themselves. And of course, we know they have commissioned a report to explore this type of work. So it's certainly possible that they could do this themselves, but without, the direct consent of people. So I would like to make the motion, and I might pull a card from Commissioner Ellenboss, knowing that we've already voted on this. I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules to bring this to a second vote to send to the people with the caveat at the end of this proposed language stating that the council shall place a charter amendment on the 2032 general election ballot, asking voters if this section of the charter shall be maintained.
Madam Chair, I'm just gonna say that I think that particular motion is unnecessary from the standpoint that this is, I at first thought this was gonna be not a reconsideration, but a consideration of an item already approved or rejected. This is an entirely new motion, and so it doesn't require that because it's a different issue with the modification of the language.
Right, sorry, I only made that because it's not included, extra wasn't included in the language submitted in the packet, so just being very clear that additional.
But that's my interpretation of mine alone.
Yeah, to clarify, just make sure I understand, to clarify, the motion is to suspend the rules so that we can vote on this new proposal now rather than this being introduction for a future meeting's discussion. Is that true?
That is correct.
Okay. Does that work for you?
No.
Okay.
No, that takes away the period of time for the public and or us to review. And I speak for me.
Oh, I just meant, does that,
only-
sorry to interrupt you, does that explanation of what's happening work for you? That's all I meant, it's like, are we on the same page with what the motion was? That's all.
Motion is to suspend the rules, vote now, I seconded it.
Well,
You're welcome to discuss, I was just asking if we're on the same page of what's happening.
well, I would say the problem I have with that is the one that has frequently been thrown back at me. And that is that this has not had the time for discussion and or review by it. And quite frankly, the language that you're talking about, the modification to that is the proposed charter amendment language, or is there still something that's to come?
That my motion would include that in the charter language at the bottom. So it's taking the exact proposal that we voted on last time, but adding that small caveat at the end.
Am I by myself? Am I the only one that has concern about that?
I'm with you. Because it's too big a change to vote.
Can I just clarify why I seconded to the great chair?
Go ahead.
I just want to clarify, the reason I seconded that motion to suspend the rules and just go ahead and vote is because that change is fairly minor. It's not a substantive change that changes the entire proposal. It just kind of gives us one extra little, it's almost like adding a severance clause in a way to the law. And so I don't view it as something that needed to be noticed in advance to the extent that it didn't fully change all of the proposal. And that's why I seconded it.
The only reason I made that motion was to be respectful of our time, knowing we've already voted on this, but if it's gonna take more time to discuss that, I'm happy to just do this as a first reading and then.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I've given this a lot of consideration. Obviously, last time I voted no. Some of my concerns was the expense and was it something that was truly needed. There's a lot of things in this proposal that I agree with, the accountability, the transparency. But as I stated before, I think there's a lot of county employees that already do that type of work. On a couple of issues that I've met with my fellow commissioners that I may or may not align myself with, I've suggested what I'm used to in government is a pilot program where there's a sunset clause, and that's essentially what this does. So I would recommend that it not be voted on, that you give the commissioners some time to chew on it. It's not a significant change, but I think it does provide some it gives us a trial period to see if it's actually effective and there's some performance measures in place.
Commissioner Coyle?
Yeah, in light of that feedback, I can certainly see the merit in that, so I will withdraw my initial
Well, first
motion.
I'll withdraw my second.
All right, I'll withdraw my motion and we'll, it's definitely for that I motion this for to go to a second vote with the language that I had previously stated added to the end.
Motion is to consider, I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any,
I'd like to go to roll call, please.
Okay. Sounds good. Staff, can you please?
What are we voting on?
Oh, the motion is now to make proposed amendment 34 to discussion and vote at a further meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Commissioner Alvarez. Probably a lot harder to hear in here with that thing going on.
Madam Chair, sorry, if there was, it still is, I know that that was discussion around the original motion to suspend the rule, but if I had a question still about this change, can I ask it now? I would just, I'm very intrigued by this, the kind of sunset clause idea. We talked about that for a number of things. Can I just ask our council, like, is that a thing? You put in the charter a sort of trigger that at a certain year that there could be a referendum?
Well, we discussed it some at tonight's meeting. I don't see an issue with it. I mean, to look at the question to make sure the language is proposed utilizes the power that the charter gives the council already to place amendments on a ballot. So my thinking was that by using a power that already exists in the charter, that the charter could direct the council to use that for this particular task. I don't think it's big enough direction.
So we have a motion to put amendment 34 on a future agenda for discussion and vote. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Brad Kelly.
No.
Maya Morales. Yes. John Mutchler.
Yes.
Hannah Ordos. Yes. Joel Fitz Jordan.
Aye.
Andrew Redding.
Yes.
Jessica Ringstead. Yes. Rod Stump.
No.
Excuse me. Jennifer Wright.
Yes.
Doug Chadwick.
Yes.
Eamon Collins.
Yes.
Liz Darrow.
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss.
Yes.
Lindsey Graham Ellenboss. Yes. Colton Collenbaugh.
Yes.
Our motion passes 13-2. Moving on to proposed amendment 35, sponsored by myself and Commissioners Fitzgerald and Stra, on a changing of the timeline of the Charter Review Commission. I wonder if either Commissioner Ringstra or Fitzgerald would like to speak to this, or if you would like me to pass the gavel and do it myself. Want me to do it? Okay. We talked about this last meeting, so I'll be super brief. Looking at section 8.11, election and period of office, just some minor changes to clarify that this commission serves for 1 full year, and that amendments made during that time, looking at section 8.21, would follow the end of the commission's term. So I would like to move that proposed amendment 35.
Madam Chair. Good vote that one.
I did. She did. Look.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see
I
that.
switched it. You're just sitting really close.
Just like being married,
I know, I was
correct
like-
it all the time.
Okay, the motion is to put proposed amendment 35 on an agenda at a future meeting for discussion and vote. So, go ahead. I think you have to chair this whole thing because
I will chair the whole thing. Go ahead, Commissioner Mutchler.
Does this change anything that theoretically can happen right now? Right now, we can meet till December 31st, according to the charter.
Right.
And then there's no limitation on when we put things on the ballot, other than closed by the auditor. So, my understanding is that we could meet through December. As if we chose to do that, we have to choose to do that. And then
we have a deadline for this November's election. But we can also have things go on the ballot a year from now too.
Commissioner Reinstra?
Yeah, this reminds me a little bit of the clarifying language, amendment that we, voted on earlier. Absolutely, I think that we can meet for a full year, but I also think, like some others, maybe like myself, got the impression or kind of told that maybe this is something that ends in July. And so I think adding the clarification really explicitly in the language would then prepare people appropriately to schedule around that, and prepare for that full year. But I do agree it could happen now. I think this really helps, that process actually happen.
And I will say that the thing I hear most when I'm going through this charter as a civic engagement process is that people go, wait a minute, but your final meeting is July 10th. Like, even though we could, it's very clear that we're, you know, and I would like to be totally honest, it's not clear enough in the current charter that 12 months is the expectation, given the timeline that we have in front of us. And I think the reason to clarify in section 8.21, following the end of the commission's term, is because I think it's politically dangerous to have 2 elections impacted by charter amendments, especially if you have a commission where folks don't get along as well as we have managed to do. And I hope that won't happen. But if some amendments went, let's say this fall, and some folks were upset by that, what's to stop that from becoming chaos for the following election? And so I think the voters deserve one process, one package of amendments, and I think it should be following the end of the commission's term, so that there's no question that we've done our job, fulfilled our duty to the voters, and then we're done. So that's the motivation behind this.
Question, I'm not sure what you just said, because
it was a lot.
It was so
well, no, I heard it. I wasn't there, and I put that thing on because I don't want to make another mistake. But I'm not sure where you were going with what you said. I'm looking at what the proposals here are that are amended, and I'm more than happy to do this at another time, have you move it and have us approve putting it on the agenda. But yeah, okay, there's a second part.
Can I clarify just briefly?
Yes.
I
You may, Commissioner Morales.
Sorry, the gavel test. Vice Chair. Right, so just to clarify, yeah, I think just to clarify what you said shorter, which is just that this changes it so there's a clear expectation of how long everybody's serving for from the beginning of the year to the very end, and then that they're putting amendments not on that primary ballot deadline, but on the following election year's deadline period. So there's no midterm deadline. And so it's sort of a slowed down process. It's a little more spacious. And then, as you said, I mean, that was one of my questions is, couldn't we just put it on 2? But I do think the point you raised about any kind of political finagling, you wouldn't really want that. You'd want it to be sort of a pure process. And so I think that makes sense. Does that make sense to you?
No, I didn't, in all honesty, I didn't turn the page. And I want to thank the council staff. And somebody has to drive this out and put it in my mailbox because they can't put the package together soon enough and get it through the mail. And I appreciate that extra effort. And I hadn't looked back on that page to see that particular information, because what I did fear was that you guys were clever enough to extend it through the end of the year. And since elections, within 10 days after it's certified, it goes into effect. And that would mean about Thanksgiving, anything between Thanksgiving and the end of the year, if you got that proposed amendment to take away the supermajority approved, then you could slip in ranked choice voting.
You give away too much.
Yeah.
Commissioner Mutchler?
This is just a clarifying question. So if we were today currently under this new charter, we would be working until December 31st if we chose to, but nothing would be on this November's ballot.
That's correct.
Nothing.
That's correct.
That's a long delay, isn't that? But I think if the county council could meet tomorrow night and with 5 votes, decided to put something in, an amendment to the charter on the next ballot.
I mean, I think it's been pointed out, they could do a lot of things, but I feel this would also give us the space for public engagement because, you know, I mentioned on an earlier amendment that had been pulled, part of the reason for that was because there just wasn't enough time to build the relationship so that we could trust each other to make a really good change to this document that only changes every 10 years. So I feel like it's really important, and that's why I made this motion and feel ready to.
I was just gonna suggest we might wanna move to, are we comfortable approving this by consent?
You're talking about introduction.
Yep. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay?
Nay.
I got one more, do you wanna hang on to that?
Okay.
Okay, so the next proposed amendment is also by myself. I wrote it, so sorry for confusion, but I'm just leaving the gavel with Vice Chair Wright. And this one's really simple. It updates the charter language to align with the US Constitution. There's no place where language changes as proposed, changes the meaning of the policy. The intent here is to be very clear with the language that we use and what it means. And I so move that we have, to place proposed amendment 36 on a meeting agenda for discussion and vote in future.
There's a second? I'll second that. Commissioner Redding?
Yeah, you said to align with US Constitution, and most of it does, but there's one part that is actually, and I'm not saying this, but it's just blatantly unconstitutional. The part in 4.20, striking out a citizen of the United States, there's a Supreme Court decision which says that you can't do that.
Understood. In order to be a registered voter of Whatcom County, you have to be a citizen of the United States. So in that place, I feel that the language is redundant. So that's why that's there.
Well, just to declare carrying out forcibly what you just said, this constitution or county charter applies to the citizens of the county, not visitors. Because it's the government as it relates to those citizens. And I just want that to be considered as we're looking at this. That's something open for, not saying we shouldn't consider it, but that's an important aspect.
Commissioner Morales?
I think we should have this discussion, but I think we should have it when we discuss. But I will say that it is consistent to say peoples with our Constitution, and our Constitution governs everyone who's here. The same way that our charter should govern everyone in Whatcom County. No one should be exempted from that law. And so peoples, in that sense, is inclusive of everyone.
So do the Bill of Rights.
Commissioner Kelly?
Oh, sorry. With the Bill of Rights in the US Constitution, does that go to non-citizens?
Commissioner Darrow?
I mean, the rule of law applies to everyone.
So somebody who's a non-citizen can keep and bear arms.
I'm not sure about that. I think you'd have to check into that, but you also can't vote if you're a non-citizen, but you still have to follow the law. So the law still applies to you.
Are there other commissioners who have not yet commented who had something they'd like to say? Otherwise, is there any objection to approving this for future consideration by consent?
No, I'm gonna vote against it.
Do you want us to call the roll or? Okay, will you please call the roll?
Karen Morales.
Yes.
John Lechler.
No.
Hannah Ordos.
No.
Joel Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Andrew Redding.
Yes.
Jessica Rienstra. Yes. Rod Stump.
No.
Jennifer Wright.
Yes.
Doug Chadwick.
No.
Eamon Collins.
Yes.
Liz Darrow.
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss.
Pass.
Lindsey Graham Ellenboss. No. Colton Tottenfeld.
Yes.
Brad Kelly.
No.
What's the vote count as it is?
I'm trying to look, we have 8,
6 and abstain.
thank you. That's what we have. Yes, indeed. All right.
Oh.
You wanna give them a?
Pass.
I didn't hear what the number was.
It was 8 to 6. You passed, you didn't abstain, correct?
I didn't abstain, but I will change my vote to abstain.
Okay, moving on, we have proposed amendment 37 by Commissioner Morales on the county's acquisition and use of new technologies, data management, and online presence. Commissioner Morales.
Madam Chair, excuse me, will you repeat the results of that vote?
Yes, so it was 8 in favor, 6 against, and 1 abstention.
Thank you.
No, he was. Oh, sorry. Your abstention, which is initially abstained.
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, so introducing amendment 37. This does require a little more legal review, so just so everyone knows that. This has got several sections that are added to this overall section and are really intended to address the acquisition of new technologies. We don't really have any language regarding technology per se in our charter, and that is something that I view as missing, so that's in there. There is some language to address the county's online platforms, the county's website, and then interactive portals. And it also would establish an open data dashboard like other counties have. And so there's a lot to discuss here. It's pretty meaty, but it does need a little more legal review in some sections of this, particularly in the gathering of data section 9.63. I need to double check the legality of each of those pieces of data and make sure that, you know, not too much or not too little would be collected there. And then in terms of data management and security, that would just modernize, ask our county to modernize its security profiles and make sure that it's using the latest technologies to make sure that data is actually secure. So that that's sort of a summary of this amendment, and I would move to place that on a future agenda.
I just have one question. I'm just in reading through this. It's my second time reading it, and I didn't read to the bottom of the first paragraph. But when you talk about unions shall be afforded veto power over any purchase, contract, or use of the above described by supermajority vote of their union? Are these am I reading that correctly, that unions supersede county council?
It's giving basically staff the right to vote on technologies introduced into their workplace that they view as being possibly rights violating in some type of way or removing human decisions. So like, for instance, if some AI is introduced that makes a decision instead of a staffer, and they view that as being dangerous to the public, then they could discuss that in their union and they could veto that.
We have a point of order that there's been no second.
Sorry.
All good. For purpose of discussion, I will second this motion. Mr. Matchler?
I would speak against this. One is for time's sake, but also whatever we come up with in the next few weeks will be obsolete in 10 years when it comes to technology and data. And I come back to my fallback that we're micromanaging the county council. This may be really important, but I don't think it's our job to push it forward.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Morales, I really appreciate the work that you've done bringing to light a couple of these things. I think there's a lot of really good ideas in here, and a lot of stuff that the county ought to be doing. I'm a little worried, I suppose, with the breadth of things included in the one amendment, and there's just a couple of things here and there where I'm a little worried about some unintended consequences, and I'm worried that the amendment or the proposal is pretty granular in a lot of areas in a way that I don't really see anywhere else in the charter. And so I'm just kind of worried about putting this forward with all of those And I think there was like one particular section here, you know, we could kind of digest these and go piece by piece, you know, if these were separate amendments. Could grapple with it a little more, but I'm just a little worried with how much is here, how many questions still need to be answered, and kind of looking at the time that we have left as a commission. So I'm a little unsold on this, but I do agree these are very important issues that the county ought to consider. I'm just wondering whether this is the most appropriate avenue.
Yeah, that's part of why I would like to get a legal review, is because I think in some cases, I'm spelling out the specifics of something that would be the backing ordinance for a simpler form of language here. So it may just be that this level of specificity would go into a memo that accompanies the actual change. And so I want to seek legal advice about that first. It might be different for different sections here, but ultimately the overall goal is to update us and have some kind of addressing of technologies in our charter, because we really don't have it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question, have you spoken with the Director of IT?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah, and we talked about the open data dashboard, and we talked about what that would look like, where things currently were. And he was very much in favor of that.
Okay. Like I said, 9.6 of that section obviously addresses information management. I can say from experience, they do a pretty robust test and evaluation period and really do their due diligence whenever they're going to roll out any kind of technology and make sure it's going to work for county government. And, you know, the cost. And then as far as your union piece, all the collective bargaining units usually allow the bargaining units to at least raise their concerns about new technology and how that impacts the employees. And there's a process within that. And quite frankly, that's a lot of my experience with pilot projects and sunset periods comes from those type of experiences, which is a lot of county departments have to go through that with their employees to make sure that you know it works for the employee and it's not infringing on their rights.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to support introducing this because I believe that this does not belong in a charter. These are county council, these are legislative functions. And the very fact that it's as granular as it is exactly because it's more like an ordinance rather than like a charter amendment. And so these are things that are appropriate for the council to take up, to deliberate and so forth, but they really don't belong in a charter that's really like the Constitution of the county and is really about the structure of government.
Very well spoken. We're asking to substitute ourselves for the county council for the existing source of government and pass that on to the people to substitute for the organized portion of government. And when I hear what I believe Mr. Stump's mind is saying right now, in concert with Mr. Redding's, probably the bookends for our political perspectives, I have to say that I will pass on this one as well from the standpoint of a favorable vote. Did I say something wrong?
No.
That's very right.
I was saying I'm squashed in the middle. You were humorous as ever, and it lends a certain, you know, light to the proceedings when you do that.
Okay, let's maintain some semblance of order.
I feel like we went into a discussion mode in somewhat of an unfair manner on this, instead of just putting it forward. What I will say is that I would appreciate the similar respect that you asked for in terms of getting legal review. I'd like to bring this back in a form that makes sense after legal review. Some of these are more fleshed out in detail than others. I certainly think that the open data dashboard is something that would be really helpful as a charter amendment. I also think the language around our online platforms is helpful. And so I think that I would like the opportunity to siphon this down and get it into a format that is shorter, that does pass legal muster, and that can come before voters. I do think voters would appreciate the opportunity to weigh in on technology and on the way that our county interfaces with the public via its tech.
We have a motion to place amendment 37 on a future agenda for discussion and vote. Is there any objection to doing this by consent? Okay. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Tom Metzler,
No.
Anna Orvis. Nathan back to me. Joel Fitzgerald. Andrew Reddick.
No.
Jessica Mainstream. No. Brad Stubb.
Nope.
Jennifer Wright.
Pass.
Doug Chadwick.
No.
Eamon Collins.
No.
Liz Dara.
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss.
No.
Nancy Graham Ellenboss. No. Colton Cottonfeld.
No.
Brad Kelly.
No.
Maya Morales. Yes. Yeah. No.
Joel?
No.
Jennifer.
I thought it was called already.
Pass.
Pass. Oh, no.
Okay, that motion fails with 2 in favor and 13 opposed. Moving on to proposed amendment 38 by Commissioner Morales on updating the Whatcom County preamble. Would you like to speak to this amendment?
Sure. Yeah, so this is, we talked about this today. We went over the section. This is just a proposed update to our preamble. We have not updated this for a little while, and it is fairly short. And this amendment doesn't add too much to it, but it does, in my opinion, encompass some of the things that have come up in our process that are important. So things like accountability, things like transparency, public input. And so putting these things into our preamble as sort of a form of intent and something that we all would like to see our county move toward in this charter and future charters is what this amendment is about. It also does, in lieu of having some kind of intergovernmental relationship acknowledgement, it does just have a recognition that we do have tribal governments and that that we can put an acknowledgement there. So yeah, that's basically what it does, asking for a vote to move that forward.
This comes where calculating the public interest comes into mind, and considering that every single one of our households will have to take into consideration that the people that we're adding into this are all suing us all at the very moment. And those of us that live in the county are having to spend about 40 hours for each property we own just to justify the water that we use. I don't think that this has any chance of passing, and as a result, is it wise for us to spend our time submitting it to the public? And I'm being very serious about that. It is a major issue. So my vote will be no.
Further discussion? Seeing none, is there any objection to, Commissioner, any objection to deciding this by consent?
I'm gonna do roll call on that.
Okay. Roll call, okay. Okay, it sounds like Commissioner Ellenboss needed to be excused, so we can mark our excuse for the rest of the meeting, thank you. And can we get a roll call on the motion to place proposed amendment 38 on a future agenda for discussion and vote?
Come back to me. Joel Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Andrew Reddick.
Yes.
Jessica Mainstream.
Yes.
Brad Stubb.
Nope.
Jennifer Wright.
Yes.
Doug Chadwick.
No.
Eamon Collins.
Yes.
Liz Dara.
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss.
No.
Nancy Graham Ellenboss is excused. Cottonfeld.
Yes.
Brad Kelly.
No.
Maya Morales. Yes. Tom Metzler.
No.
No.
That motion passes 8-6 with 1 excused. Moving on to proposed amendment 39, also by Commissioner Morales, modifying public accountability measures to increase public engagement opportunities. Would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, thank you, Chair Darrell. I have put this up here, actually somewhat in honor of the fact that this commission asked for so much more detail and teeth when this originally came before us, and so I brought it back in a completely different form. So Amendment 39 essentially institutes town halls with teeth. It says that council members need to hold the town halls. It talks about how that needs to happen. And it also does put an enforcement clause in there. That if a council member fails to hold one town hall a year, as well as attend half of the council meetings in person for that year, that they will be considered of having abdicated their duties and their seat is vacant and can be filled. It also adds a public engagement section there and spells out that we need to have more public input and better engagement technologies for the public online. And adding into that expectation an actual public input process for budgeting by 2029. And so I would ask that we move to discuss and vote on this at a future meeting.
Waiting for a second.
No, I will second that. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
With all due respect, I made similar comments when this came to us before. We're trying to micromanage the county council. The way to get rid of a county council member is to vote them out. There's already in state law how you can get rid of a council member. I think it's 3 excused absence. I think it's the same in the charter. 3 absences from the council without excuse. There's a mechanism to do that. Just added another layer here. I think this is all a great idea, but I think threatening the council what we're doing here to do something that they should do, I don't want that idea.
Yeah, I was opposed to this last time and now I'm even more opposed to it, but the changes, this whole thing of trying to make it so that they're automatically removed when that's something that I think belongs with the public and not with a charter amendment. Yeah, I don't think we should even be, I think we've already discussed this enough, and I don't think it merits having yet more discussion about that, given that I don't see any way that we're going to put this on the ballot anyways. So I'm not going to be supporting introducing this.
Any discussion? Objection to deciding this by consent?
Yes.
Okay. Staff, can you please call the roll?
Schultz Jordan.
No.
No.
Jessica Riestra. Rod Stone.
Nope.
Jennifer Wright.
No.
Bill Chadwick.
No.
Eamon Collins.
No.
Ms. Darrow.
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss.
No.
Lindsay Graham Ellenboss is excused. Colton Kaltenfeld.
No.
Brad Kelly.
No.
Maya Morales. Yes. John Webster.
I don't think so.
Jessica Discipline.
Okay, that motion fails with 2 in 4 to 0. Oh, wait. Oh, gosh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Go ahead. I'm quiet over here, so yeah, no.
2 in favor, 1 excused, and 12 opposed. Moving on to proposed amendment 40 by Commissioner Morales on aligning the charter with the wording utilized by the U.S. and Washington state constitutions and adding new sections to address digital, human, and labor rights. Commissioner Morales, would you like to speak to this amendment?
Yeah, I did mention this earlier, but essentially this section has not really been expanded on for quite some time. We have seen many changes since 1978. And one of the places that has changed the most for most people is that we now live as cyborgs. We live both digitally and physically, and we are in both places at once half the time. But we really lack any kind of clarity around our digital presence. And so this acknowledges that we have digital rights as well as physical human rights, and that they overlap. And so it adds that into this. It also adds in the right to live in a clean and healthy environment. And it adds the right of workers to organize their labor. And so I think this is a needed update for the rights of people in Whatcom County, and we would like to ask for folks to advance this to the people for a vote.
I will second that. Discussion.
All due respect, yeah, I just don't think that's the business of this commission to launch into something like this. I think these are rights that are inherent in our state already.
Mr. Mutchler, could you please speak up?
These are rights inherent already in our state and in our country and in our county. And there are some controversial organizations and issues with this that I think can be divisive. And I don't think we want to be divisive. That's sort of the intent of this group. So, I think it's a good idea.
Was there a second?
Excuse me? Yeah, there was. Yeah, if I can clarify, there's no organization in here. This is a county charter piece that just describes rights. And so none of these rights that I've added in are addressed already. And so that is why I've added them here. Because we have a humble charter county, we have the ability to expand upon rights in ways that other counties do not, because they are general laws. And so they need to follow what is generally listed in the RCW. We actually have the ability to expand the rights of people who live in Whatcom County. And so that is what this amendment is.
Can I just ask one question? Quick one. What is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Is that something I live under?
Yes. Yeah, the question was, what is the universal, sorry, Chair.
Go ahead.
Declaration of Human Rights. That was actually the United States was one of the original co-authors of that. This was passed by a bunch of nations in the world in 1948. And there are many, many nations all over the world who have signed on and ratified the 31 articles of human rights that, the 30, excuse me, that contains. And so while we are not governed by them per se, like you wouldn't go to court, alleging that one of those articles has been violated for you in a US court, the US courts do have precedent of taking those into account as being relevant in any case. And so we have lots and lots of precedent over time since the 1950s to show that. And so this just reaffirms that we are committed to upholding those rights. They are a very basic set of rights, and they are different than our Washington State Constitution or United States Constitution.
Right, Commissioner?
Yeah, I think there's some good things in here, such as, the right to a clean and healthy environment. But I am a little bit concerned. The county shall form a climate justice commission. This is again a legislative function. But if this could be pared down to not be again intruding into the legislative functions, I would be more comfortable with it.
Yeah, so I flagged two amendment proposals that I needed a little more review on legally, and this was the other one. So I had number 37 and number 40 really need to go in front of several lawyers before they are completely perfect and ready for a vote. But because of the rush to just get them all done by this date, they are not reviewed yet.
Do you think you'll have that legal review before the June 3rd or June 12th?
I think the 16th would be a safer bet. Yeah.
Madam Chair,
May I ask what Commissioner Morales a question?
I see Commissioner Collins and then for sure you can.
I think you are right to be paying close attention to data privacy. AI, as much as artificial intelligence is a buzzword right now, and every company's slapping those letters on something. We've yet to scratch the surface of the consequences and how these technologies are going to change our lives. But I have a lot of questions about what the impact of some of these would be, the unintended consequences of setting up new review systems. And I hear you as on the AI, the other amendment you proposed too, that there is a forthcoming legal review. But honestly, I think too, for something this far reaching, I don't think that legal review would be enough to make me feel comfortable that I have understood all this. Like I think I would have to hear from experts and I would need a lot of time to chill.
Madam Chair, in light of the fact that this gentleman from not our body wishes to ask a question or brings up something that ends up getting in our minutes, I would ask to be recognized and yield the floor to the gentleman.
Fair enough, keeping in mind this is introduction only, so if you could keep your comments away from the purview of discussion and voting type information, that'd be very helpful.
It's only a question for clarification for next time.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Ellenboss. Commissioner Morales, you said earlier that as a home rule county, we can expand rights to everyone or anyone. Does that include non-citizens?
Oh, when I say we can expand on rights, I don't mean in the sense of any particular people. Rights are generally afforded to a larger and expanding group of people.
So they're not
So it
something that
just
we're
means
born with?
that we are able to change something in ways that general laws counties aren't.
So the rights are not something we're born with, but rather granted by government?
I don't think we're allowed to engage in this introduction stuff, so I'm gonna.
I think the Constitution of the United States is clear on that. Is there any objection to deciding this by consent?
Yeah.
Oh, did you have something?
I'll do it quickly. I'm reading through this. And first of all, I'm not sure, first of all, I think I had very right this morning. Because that's exercising every single right that's here. If we pass this, how does this make the lives of our Whatcom County families better? I don't see how their lives are improved by spending more time.
So Sure, can I be recognized? I would say that is a discussion that is saved for the discussion. I think it's important to vote this forward and have that discussion. What's clear to me is that people are interested in this, which means that I think a discussion would be a good idea. Whether we ultimately decide to pass on to voters, I think is a real question, but I think this is a discussion worth having, and I want us to make sure we get through all of these and don't go too far. But I would want you to be able to say what you want to say.
Yeah, thank you. So keeping in mind that this still needs to go through legal review. Yeah, I again, kind of the same thing with the last one. Individually, I do agree with most of this. I'm really worried about that Climate Justice Commission and their ability to make binding decisions on all past, current, and future decisions. I just think that's a big old can of worms. So I'm a little worried about that. I think there's enough going on here that I would like to see the legal check happen before we move this to a discussion, just so that I'm feeling I have a little bit of a better idea of what exactly we're moving. So, and knowing that we have other meetings, I'm wondering if you might be willing to have this
It's my understanding that, if I can clarify, it's my understanding that we need in this meeting to say whether we're moving it toward a discussion. That doesn't mean that we have to vote in the next meeting. That's why I suggested putting this at the latest agenda to be able to vote, which is the 16th, because I think it will require a little time for legal review and any kind of slashes or amendments that need to come out of this. I think, again, it seems that there's a request to kind of like pare it down and make it more general. Definitely in the digital rights section, that would have a backing. And to be extremely clear with every single one of you and the public, you absolutely have none of those rights now, not a single one. Those are all brand new rights that our county could afford. But we have absolutely no rights to our data actually.
I can't be quiet on this. This is just virtue signaling for your county council run. This is all, you know, this isn't going through. Let's just vote on it. Let's.
I respectfully disagree with that.
Okay.
I'm not just.
Sorry, I'm out of line. But
Okay. I presume there's some objection to deciding this by consent?
yes.
Okay. Staff, can you call the roll, please?
Andrew Raddick,
Yes.
Jessica Leekstraat. No. Brad Stock,
No.
Jennifer Wright,
Yes.
Kevin Chadwick,
No.
Amy Collins,
No.
Liz Darrow,
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss,
No.
Lindsey Graham Ellenboss is excused, Colton Kaltenfeld,
Okay, pass.
Brad Kelly,
No.
Ryan Morales, yes. John Muchler,
No.
Anna Portas, no. Tobin Jordan,
No.
Jennifer Wright,
No.
Colton Fox.
No.
That motion. The motion fails with 3 in favor, 11 against, and 1 excused. Now we are moving on to amendment number 41 by Commissioner Morales on establishing a public charter review, civic engagement, and education process. Commissioner Morales, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Sure, thank you. So this amendment came out of what many of us actually engaged in this past year. So the goal here is to have the county actually take responsibility for the education and public engagement process before the charter happens. And to also create a period of time when, right after we're sworn in, until the first meeting, which I suggest would be towards the end of January, in which we actually have some meetings in our district. So charter review commissioners would meet in districts similar to what you had us doing, Commissioner Wright, but in meetings, but in a less formal way, in a way that would like share with the public, here's what the charter is, here's all the sections, here's what the role is, and gather input as well from the public and have just some time to explore and educate. And then during that sort of second half of that period before the first official meeting, but after being sworn in, there could also be hopefully past commissioners invited to mingle with the new commissioners and kind of share lessons learned, et cetera. Also have the public invited. And so the goal here is really to create a little more education and civic engagement, but have the county do that process. One of the things that several of us who engaged in this before our commission was actually elected and sworn in was that there was a barrier because people don't really want to engage candidates. That feels political. And so we were trying to educate the public about this once every 10 years occurrence and this really important convening. But it was really hard to do that because the county wasn't really doing as much as they might have been able to do. And doing that as a candidate was just really tough. So this would be a way for us to, A, make sure the public knows what's going on, B, put that responsibility on the county, but also I would be hopeful that what this might also have a secondary impact of doing is putting this on the map in terms of our county government and having them be fully prepared to handle these meetings, schedule these meetings, get the right materials, microphones, et cetera, the budget in place. I think it would be helpful to have this process kick off where they're educating the public and also having it on their radar that this is coming down the pipeline. And so that is what this is for. And would move that we move this for a discussion at a future time.
Second that. Discussion. Go ahead, Commissioner Muchler.
I like what she said. I like how it would, and it sounds perfect coming from a county councilman to propose something like this, but not the charter review commission. Great idea. By the way, I'm a homeschool dad, 7 kids. They know this stuff. Their dad has been in 9 or 10 elections. So this is something for the families to do. This is something for the school districts to do. They teach civics classes. I don't think this is something for us to worry about. I'd spare moments here.
Commissioner Riddick?
Yeah, I also, in my case, I'm concerned about adding unnecessary demands on government, on the executive, on the auditor, and so forth, where I can't see material benefits coming out of us. So this is the kind of stuff that I really object to, where we just keep on expanding governmental requirements without any clear image to me on how it benefits people in their everyday lives. So I'm going to, again, oppose having this come forth for consideration. I don't think there's any chance anyways.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really do appreciate the, I think, ideas that are in here. I think it's a great idea for best practice and would certainly recommend that the next commission engage in these sorts of activities. I am hesitant to add more amendments to our plate that specifically deal with charter review itself. And so I will be voting no on this.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo Joel's sentiment there. These are all really good ideas. And having done, as a candidate, going around the county and doing this education piece, like I could see that there's a ton of value in that. I like to Sandy Phillips for organizing that. Got to get your plug in, man. You did a lot of work. But yeah, I'm just worried about codifying this in the charter for very much the same reason that I was kind of against the idea of requiring the auditor to increase our word count. Just feel like this is the sort of thing that could be like a resolution or a memo or something. I know this commission's kind of done with resolutions, but I feel like that's probably a better mechanism. I know there's not a lot of enforcement, but that's just kind of my thought there. But I do appreciate the intent of this, and I think this is well thought out. So kudos for putting that together on this.
Commissioner Ellenboss?
I just have one question for the body, and that is, there's a very distinct mandate in the existing mandate, because that's what this essentially is. In the charter, as it relates to the county budgeting for our process. And I don't know, I've asked for that budget since the day I got the letter that said I was elected. And I have yet to see that letter. And for the most part, I haven't seen the result. I mean, haven't seen the budget. I haven't seen what that number is. Haven't seen what the directive was. And it's gonna maybe become very important now, because by failure to see that, we don't know whether there's even any funds allocated for any meeting beyond the 6th of July. So that all goes to mandate work in Whatcom County, and the people approved that particular language. And I'm not feeling good about additional mandates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I appreciate the intent, and I think you proposed multiple things here, town halls, all things that elected officials and public officials should be doing. And again, at the end of the day, if they're not, we have the opportunity to vote for somebody different the next time around. So we had no on this, but again, I appreciate your consideration on that.
Objective. Okay. Scott, can you please call the roll?
Jessica Greenstrat? No. Rod Stump?
No.
Jennifer Wright?
No.
Doug Chadwick?
No.
Amy Collins?
No.
Liz Dara?
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss?
I'm gonna abstain.
Lindsey Graham Ellenboss is excused. Colton Holtzapfel?
No.
Brad Cully?
No.
Maya Morales? Yes. John Mutchler?
No.
Hannah Ordos? No. Joel Fitz Jordan?
No.
Andrew Reddick?
No.
Madam Chair, my abstention is because I don't like ganging up time after time on my fellow commissioner.
Okay, so that, motion failed with 2 in favor, 11 opposed, 1 abstention, and 1 excused. And, thank you for that comment. I will say, Commissioner Ellenboss, that some of the best advice I ever got for chairing this commission, comes from someone I respect who's done this a number of times, and they said, the chair's role is to always second the minority, and I appreciate that so much. I've never seen that more obviously needed than in this meeting right here, for which we have one more amendment proposal. And that is amendment proposal 42. Establishing more equitable access to the ballot through public campaign financing. Commissioner Morales, would you like to say to it?
Yes, thank you. This is the last of the 6. We're almost there, y'all. So this is a proposal to institute democracy vouchers. And I'm not sure that folks know what those are, but this is essentially a program that the auditor runs, and it allows for people at a certain income threshold to receive what are called democracy vouchers, or a certain amount of money that is like a certificate that they then can contribute to a candidate. And what this allows is for people who do not have extra funds to be able to support a candidate to the ballot, to be able to do that. And so what we often see in our elections is that there are, there's sort of a weighted scale here, and that it's much more likely that candidates with wealth and wealthy friends are able to actually access the ballot box. And so this is sort of a people's move. This allows folks at lower income brackets to still be able to contribute to the candidates they want to support. Whether those candidates are wealthy or not, ultimately they are able to take part in that process and able to say, I want to donate, you know, my democracy voucher to this candidate. And so this just helps us with access to our democracy and allows more people to participate in that as candidates and as electors, as people who want more than just the power of their vote. They also want the power to support candidates who they want. And so I ask that folks move this forward for consideration and a vote.
Second.
We have Commissioner Rinsler with a second. Any discussion? Go ahead, Commissioner Reddy.
Yeah, this is another case where I think it's a legislative function, and the very fact that it says right here, municipal code of Seattle, where they adopted it, it was adopted by ordinance in Seattle. It's not part of the Seattle charter, city charter. So I personally think that vouchers are a good idea for all the reasons you indicated, but I think this is way too prescriptive. It does not belong in a charter. It's something that again would have to come out of the county council.
Commissioner Morales?
Yeah, so I put that link there just because I think what our attorneys, right, would need to do is to figure out which slice of that would go into the actual charter itself in terms of how to enact that, and the auditor would need to review it. But this is actually a tiny slice of that ordinance. That ordinance is huge, and it's called Honest Elections. It puts tons of limits on campaign finance, and it actually rewrites an entire campaign finance code. We use general laws actually, and we use the PDC, the Washington Public Disclosure Commission. We use that as our campaign compliance mechanism. And I really felt like we should keep that consistent in our county, but that we might want this one little slice of a program out that will enable us to kind of equalize our elections a little bit more. So this does not enact something intricate or major. It's actually a fairly simple thing. The person who would probably be involved in needing to use this code, and again, I put that in there as a reference, would be the auditor, because it would be the auditor that would flesh out the details of this. And so this is just a fairly short, basic amendment. It institutes a program, and it helps folks access the ballot and support candidates they want.
Mr. Mushler?
I think I've run about 9 or 10 times for dog catcher all the way to mayor, and I've never spent $1 of my own money because I want my wife to stay married to me. So she says, don't spend any of the family money. And because of that, I think she does vote for me at least, but I don't spend any. But I ask people, I raise money for my campaigns, and I think I've always outraised my opponent.
Because I believe what I'm doing, I believe in this, I raised money to do advertising for this, and I don't mind doing that, and I think it's part of the healthy part of democracy. If you're gonna get your message out there, you need to believe enough to say to your great aunt and your uncle and your friends, hey, can you pony up $50? Otherwise, this voucher thing, it's welfare for politicians. It's welfare for politicians. People that don't want to do the hard work that people like me do, they'd rather get the vouchers, and then they don't have to do that. So we're using public dollars, and nobody's yet to mention where the money comes from. I mean, it's taxpayers pay for this. It's not like you've got Apple or Microsoft or Samson Ropes or Superfeed. We're going to donate money so you can spread it to candidates that you want. It's coming out of the government, out of the taxpayers to this. Again, it's welfare for politicians. And I couldn't be more against it.
Commissioner Mushler.
I just wanted to,
Morales.
point of clarification. Thank you, that was interesting. Not as doppelganger, but, yeah, so, in terms of the work you have to do, you still have to, in order to get someone's voucher, you've got to ask for it. So you still have to actually go directly to people and ask for their support. It just allows people to support candidates who literally have no space in their personal budget to do so currently. And so it allows for people to be able to say, at a certain income level, I can still support this candidate who's coming to my door with their flyer, and I really like their ideas, and I just can't afford it this month. They're able to give their voucher. And so the way this works is that that particular set of folks who meet a certain income bracket are mailed these vouchers, and they are able to then use them. And so it's there's lots of ways to set it up, and frankly, that would be left to our auditor to deal with the policy of that. And it would also be left to our council to figure out the funding of that. I mean, this is all stuff that, again, it's interesting. I have folks saying that I over legislate, but then when I don't, there's complaints. Ultimately, I think it's important to leave this as a very sort of like small, short paragraph that says we're going to institute this program, and it's our auditor and our council to figure that out.
Yeah, thank you. I've heard a little bit about these, and I've done some research, but not a ton, so I'm a little unfamiliar with this. And gosh, I wish this is something that we had explored way earlier in here, because I do want to learn more about this. So I'm curious to move this forward to continue this conversation. To your point about keeping this short and concise, I'm a little hesitant about having language in our charter that references a specific initiative by another municipality. I think that's a little out of form.
That's not in blue. It wouldn't be in the charter. I've just put that in as a note.
Which
one here?
I thought you were delete.
No, so I'm curious to see if you'd be open to a friendly amendment here, to basically strike which it may base on portions of Seattle's honest election initiative and any subsequent amendments by ordinance to the democracy voucher portion of that law, and strike that portion, and then strike the and honest elections from the third line, and just say the county council shall cause a temporary elections commission to review and author a new section of our county code by ordinance to implement this section, period. Final approval of the program shall be made by council.
Yeah, I'm totally amenable to amendments, but I think, again, that's something we should do after moving this forward. That
I
is
think we're
not.
getting into discussion territory. I think the feedback is wonderful, but we did not have the same benefit for all people proposing legislation here tonight. So I wonder if Mr. Kelly had your hand up.
I just was curious where the money comes from for the voucher.
Again, I do think what we're discussing right now is if this should be moved forward to discussion. And I will say that with respect to other commissioners who asked for the grace, because this is our final night of having these things sorted out a little bit more clearly, or perhaps legal review or other things, we have given that grace to other commissioners here tonight. So I'm going to ask now that we either approve this by consent, or if there's objection to that we call roll.
Call roll, please.
Okay, staff, can you please call the roll? Staff.
No.
Jennifer Wright?
No.
Doug Chadwick?
No.
Eamon Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Garrett?
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss?
No.
Ms. Graham Ellenboss is excused. Colton Kaltenfeld?
Yes.
Brad Kelly?
No.
Maya Morales? Yes.
John Muchler,
No.
Anna Ordus,
No.
Jordan Jordan,
Aye.
Andrew Redding,
Yes.
Jessica Reedstrom.
Yes.
And that motion fails 7-7 with one excused. Okay. We are now moving on to new business. Any additional items from commissioners?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Olmos.
our next meeting is the committee of the whole as it relates to removal or modification of our allocation of council at large.
Right.
And I don't know whether others have the same sentiment, but it really bothers me when we have a long agenda, lots of stuff on our shelf, and we really talk way too long on issues that we know are gonna fail. So know that I'm gonna tell the commission and the public that it will not be my position to attempt to pursue for that entire committee of the whole the garnering of support for the 10 votes necessary to put forth that concept before the public. And in light of that, if it's pretty obvious that it's not going to have sufficient support, I'm going to suggest that we add an additional item. We'll have the option to do that evening, but I will give you the forewarning that I will be asking for Commissioner Redding and Commissioner Morales to bring forth their two issues as it relates to salaries. And that we attempt to deal with those and hammer those out so we don't have to hammer them out in another meeting, because we should be able, under the committee of the whole, to come to a recommendation to the body such that, and that will only require a simple majority, but once that simple majority is achieved, that recommendation can be passed on from the committee of the whole to us at our next meeting, and we'll be able to have a simple vote on that particular issue, which will then allow for us to consider some of these other things that we have before us. Maybe most importantly, Commissioner Ordos's proposal. Anyway, that's just an announcement on my part, and if you will, a request for you to all consider, and of course, and mainly the players, that they be ready to make, if the body approves, that they be ready to take up the balance of our commission of the whole with those particular topics.
Commissioner Muchler.
I think that's very wise, and I make a motion that the agenda for the committee of the whole coming up start first of all with the size of the county council, which we talked about, and then include, as time allows, the issue of salary of the council, elected officials, and then the salary of the commission. I think that's a great idea, good use of time. That's a motion to change the agenda. Second.
Is now a time when I can discuss that?
We can discuss.
I just want to say that I feel we spent a whole committee of the whole on that already. It feels a little extra to spend yet another chunk of time on that instead of another issue for us.
Commissioner Ordos.
Just more for clarification to make sure that I understand what Commissioner Allenboss was trying to say. Was the intention that we would have the committee of the whole for your proposed amendment, and then the balance of that time actually voting, having discussion and voting on amendments that have been kind of kicked down the road?
Technically, if I can interpret the purpose of a committee of the whole, it's called for a specific purpose. I don't want to see us waste a bunch of time. So if it's obvious we're not going to have 10 votes, I'm going to ask the chair to call for a vote. And if that comes 57 minutes into the committee of the whole, it's only prudent to have something else that's before us and has had a lot of input that we can either approve or disapprove and get it off from the shelf, allowing us to go on to other things, hoping that we don't have a whole lot of additional discussion on those two items. We should be able to achieve those and have them off from the shelf so that, I mean, I'm looking at the list and they're still there and they've been there since the beginning. And it'd be nice to have those discussion items off the list.
I will say that for past committee of the whole, we've noticed the public that no final decision on amendments will be made, and
And that's true, it still won't. A committee of the whole can only recommend to the body. And so we'll render a decision to either recommend it or to not recommend it. That's where we are. And it would be the same situation, Madam Chair, as it relates to the item that we already have addressed. I don't have the authority, nor do you, I guess, for that matter, for us to have a final vote at a committee of the whole. But we can render the decision as to what our recommendation is going to be to the body. If there are not 10 votes for it, the committee of the whole's recommendation to the body would be to reject.
Does that clarify what you were asking, Commissioner Ordos?
It does.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is in order because we have a motion on the floor now.
Well, the motion is to include the salary commission and salaries to commissioners amendment proposals on the agenda of the committee of the whole, which is coming up next Tuesday. So I think we're discussing that.
Okay, but we haven't seconded it and clinched it.
There's a
I have
second.
Oh, I see. Okay, I was gonna suggest a different idea, but if we're in a motion, I can.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, staff, could you call the roll, please?
Jennifer Wright,
House.
Doug Chadwick,
Yes.
Kim Collins, Liz Darrow,
Yes.
Joe Ellenboss,
Yes.
Lindsey Graham Ellenboss is excused, Colton Coltonfeld,
Yeah.
Brad Kelly,
Yes.
Maya Morales,
I'm gonna abstain on that.
John Mutchler.
Yes.
Hannah Ordos,
Yes.
Joel Fitzjordan,
Yes.
Andrew Redding,
Yes.
Jessica Ristra, yes, Rod Stump,
Yes.
Jennifer Wright.
Yes.
Okay, now can we find
That motion passes with I feel like whoa, that's what it is.
In the bathroom.
I feel like I lost it. Okay, with 2 excused, 1 abstention, and 12.
And one bathroom.
Yeah, that's excused. I feel like that's a good excuse. Okay, Commissioner Morales.
So, I would like to motion to reconsider amendment 40 and put that on the agenda for the committee.
Motion to reconsider.
That is the updating of section 1.11 of the Whatcom County Charter.
And your motion to reconsider putting it on the
So
agenda.
it's a motion to reconsider the vote on that, and I'm motioning to instead put it on the committee of the whole agenda for further discussion. Because there was a lot of discussion about it, it seemed like it was an interesting thing to talk about. And so I am motioning to reconsider that vote, and I would like us to forward it along to the committee of the whole discussion. And not a vote.
We voted on this, was this one that failed earlier?
To go to the agenda of a future meeting, yes.
It did fail.
Yes.
So for it to be reconsidered, a person on the prevailing side would have to make the motion.
Oh, that's true.
Go ahead, Commissioner Elbas.
Yes, who brought the cookies and coffee tonight?
Me and him.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Appreciate it. What are you guys laughing? You appreciate it, didn't you?
Commissioner Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to recognize that in honor of cutoff, it is an incredible amount of work to through 42 amendments. I checked the last charter recommission, and that is double the amount of amendments that were proposed for the 2015 cycle. And I just really want to congratulate the commission. I know it's been a lot of work for a lot of folks to put those together, and I also really want to thank staff for the amount of work that has gone into that as well. I know I've leaned on staff counsel for several amendments, and there have been times that I've sent a complex legal question and expected to get a response within a couple days to a week, and I'll get a response like 20 minutes later that has a thorough legal analysis. And I just cannot thank folks enough for that.
Commissioner Muchler.
I have admired the skills and the bedroom of the skills of the chair. And tonight was a high point of efficiency. I don't know how many you got through, but more than two. Well done, Chair. It's not easy to do.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Ordos.
In the spirit of appreciating people, I will say you guys have been doing really great. I think that our staff has been amazing. But I also want to thank the public for their engagement. I had the benefit of going back through and reading all 302 public comments that we've received as of 12 o'clock this afternoon. So thank you for that. The winner being ranked choice voting at 262 emails received. And then anything else was a very, very sad second place. So I won't even mention it, but I appreciate that because oftentimes, when I watch county council over these past few years, we get public comment and we don't often get to see the written comment that comes in. So I just wanted to appreciation to the public for showing up and making the voices heard. That's what we're here to listen to. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So the next meeting will be a special meeting, committee of the whole, to discuss a couple of things: council districting, salary commission, and salaries for commissioners on Tuesday, June 3rd at 6 p.m. Right here. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 9:26.